In fact, Fang Qi had seen many factions where the tall and big palaces destroyed the structure of mountains. However, this faction before him seemed to truly merge into nature. The winding paths looked serene, but the tranquility couldn't conceal the great dignity of this ancient faction. Looked down from the sky, the whole faction was like a huge astrolabe on which all kinds of buildings dotted the mountainous forest like elusive stars. Compared with the three saint factions, this faction had fewer imposing buildings but had a different sense of aloofness and sereneness. Only until now did Fang Qi learn that the two messengers who first visited the Yuanyang city shop were third-generation disciples of the heavenly faction. The fat one was Ding San, and the thin one was Shi Lei. The person who came with them was Xiao Yunhe, the white-robed elder who had discussed Dao in the heavenly faction with the black-robed Daoist. But Mr. Fang saw a lowly walking before him. What is going on with Zhang Xiaoyu? How did she come with us? He. Zhang Xiaoyu made a face at Mr. Fang and said, I'm an outstanding disciple in the Heavenly Academy, so the elders sent me here to have a friendly visit in the Heavenly faction which has the same route as our academy. Walking beside her, Elder Xiao Yunhe confirmed her words and added, some other outstanding disciples of the Heavenly Academy will come here too. In exchange, we'll send some outstanding disciples to the Heavenly Academy. You even have exchange students. Mr. Fang froze. That's the concept, Xiao Yunhe laughed and said, you had such programs long ago? I thought our exchange plan is a new idea. Ha ha ha. Of course, Mr. Fang said. Teaching Dao. They talked with each other while walking toward the depths of the faction. Mr. Fang froze. Asking me to teach Dao. The white-robed elder Xiao Yunhe said respectfully, I heard that even some saint-level masters in the West Continent call you Instructor Fang with respect. With your status, our disciples will be fortunate if you can teach Dao in our heavenly faction. He continued, you may give a casual lesson. If I'm being presumptuous, please just forget it. Mr. Fang asked, a casual lesson will do. Of course. Then, I'll do it, ugh. Xiao Yunhe stared at Mr. Fang dumbfoundedly. He agreed just like this. From the mountain gate, the group walked over a stone bridge and reached the Dao teaching meadow where the new disciples did their morning training. The disciples who were guarding the faction on the stone bridge bowed at them to greet them. The new disciples and advanced disciples stood in two square formations on Dao teaching meadow and outside of the Dao pursuit palace. The new disciples were dressed in grey robes while the advanced disciples wore blue robes. About 100 disciples were sitting on futons inside Dao pursuit palace, and they were dressed in white robes. They were the core disciples of the heavenly faction. A few people sat in front of others, and their cuffs had embroidered auspicious beast patterns. Even though Mr. Fang didn't understand the division of the disciples in this faction, he could see that these were the most talented or most outstanding young disciples in the whole faction in one glance. Such a big welcome ceremony! Mr. Fang looked around and saw many white-robed young men and women sneaking glances at him from the left and the right. Oh! Mr. Fang was excited. The promotion has produced good effects. When Mr. Fang glanced at them, the disciples remembered his hellish gaze over instant noodles in the visuals. That gaze seems to be able to decide your fate. Elder Gu Song's narration was still fresh in their minds. With a shiver, these disciples all shrugged like rabbits. Of course, a group of old men walked toward Mr. Fang with big smiles. They exchanged pleasantries. There were 6 major disciples, 3 men and 3 women, in the heavenly faction. They sat at the front of the group. Behind them were 36 outstanding disciples including Kang Feng and Su Yingjia, the white-robed disciple of Gu Song. After Mr. Fang was gone, some girls came together. Was that old demon Fang? Oh, no. Holiness Fang! When he glanced at me, I was suffocated, horrifying, a master who destroys factions without blinking. He cast a glance at me. Do you think? What are you talking about? One of the white-robed women in the front walked over. Senior Sister Yu Yin, the girl shrieked. Get yourselves ready, we'll visit Holiness Fang in the afternoon. Why are we going? Can we not go? Oh! My stomach hurts. I experienced qi deviation last night during cultivation, thud. One girl dropped to the ground stiffly. Oblivious of the situation, Mr. Fang began to choose the location for the branch shop. Different from other shops, the heavenly faction applied for the opening of this branch shop, so it was easy to obtain. On the other side. Are you sure that you don't want to go and hear Senior Fang's lesson on Dao? Lesson on Dao. The girl who had fallen down stood up again. Do we have the opportunity to hear Dao from a master who is on the ascendance level? Senior Fang will really give a lesson on Dao, another girl asked cautiously. Are you going? Yes. Yes. 4 p.m. at Immortal Tune Pavilion, don't be late. Meanwhile, won the side of male disciples. Kang Feng obviously had also heard the news. Lesson on Dao. Instantly, the image of Mr. Fang eating instant noodles rose in his mind. Verb. Mr. Fang taught us many battle pithy formulas. Hairy bosses are afraid of fire, and big bosses are afraid of doors. The image in his mind changed to the one in which the elves recited Mr. Fang's pithy formulas with great pride. But lately, he kept having strange nightmares. They will be imprisoned here forever. Their power can never pierce the endless void. They can never rise above this world. But there are exceptions to everything. In his dreams, he seemed to see a figure, but he couldn't clearly see this person's face. Before this figure was blinding golden light. Then, he seemed to see a cup full of all kinds of horrifying alien bugs. When the lid was lifted, these horrifying existences which had been silent for a long time were disturbed and got restless. When a pale blue spiritual light fell, he seemed to see countless bugs beginning to devour each other. However, the scene was not clear and real. In the dreams, things were distorted, and the twisting and the struggling things seemed not to be bugs. At this moment, a pair of eyes suddenly turned toward Zomo instantly. Zomo's hair stood on end. Ah! With a shiver, he instantly woke up at the counter. What's wrong? Alarmed, Ruan Ning stood up from the seat beside him. Sorry. Zomo said apologetically, last night, I didn't sleep well. Meanwhile, in St. Heinz's Great Hall. Then, in that ancient war, did anyone truly make that leap forward? Saint Dolan asked in a deep voice. In that war, no one made the leap, St. Heinz said mildly, because that piece of divinity, or the so-called Dao seed in the East Continent, broke. Broke. Saint Dolan said in astonishment. For people in the East Continent, it needs the combination of the right time, right place, and right people. For us, we need the Holy Trinity. Saint Heinz explained, so, we can only wait for another opportunity to arrive. At the heavenly abyss sea, two figures still stood on the reef on the shore of the heavenly abyss sea. Violent gales swept across the sea. Reminiscent glints flashed in their eyes. Ascendance to the true immortal realm is like bugs devouring each other. The time is coming, all of the world will fall into chaos. At that time, perhaps one day, they will destroy themselves this way. In the afternoon, at the Immortal Tune Pavilion in the Heavenly Faction, this ancient and unique pavilion was famous since the ancestral master of the Heavenly Faction had listened to Immortal Tune and understood great Dao in this pavilion. This place was the highest level Dao teaching venue in the Heavenly Faction. It was heard that every person who had the privilege to teach Dao here was at least a senior member with a high position and great power. The Immortal Tune Pavilion was only opened for teaching Dao once in hundreds or even 1,000 years. In the pavilion, the fragrance of rare herbs floated around. The top spiritual scent could refresh people's mind and help them concentrate with excellent effects. Although Mr. Fang had just decided to give a lecture on impulse, the Heavenly Faction had ordered the disciples to prepare the place with great care ahead of time. Sedately sitting on the futons in the pavilion, they looked as if they had bathed, scented, and even fasted for 3 days. Sitting in the front row were the white-robed elder Xiao Yunhe, the black-robed elder, and a few elders whom Mr. Fang had seen in the Great Hall. Behind them were the 6 most outstanding disciples of the heavenly faction. 2 of them, 1 man and 1 woman, sat in the center. The white-robed man on the left with a solemn expression was the elder senior disciple Zhuge Qinlong, and he was the most talented young disciple in the heavenly faction. The white-robed tranquil woman sitting on the right was Yu Yin. Although she had entered the faction much later, her talent was on par with elder senior disciple Zhuge Qinlong. Then, they saw Mr. Fang walking in from the outside. When Mr. Fang passed, some female disciples almost had cold sweat popping out. Kang Feng and some male disciples remembered the special effects in the visuals and also had cold sweat on their foreheads. Hem. He cleared his throat and said, I didn't know that I would be invited to give a lesson on Dao, so I'll make it casual. This opening. Hey! The elders thought, this style doesn't feel right. The Dao which one can explain is not the unchanging Dao, Mr. Fang said. It means that Dao is something that you can understand but not to be talked about. If it's explained, it's no longer the permanent great Dao, it's only one person's Dao. TL note, the Dao which one can explain is not the unchanging Dao is the first line in Dao De Jing, a Chinese classic text traditionally credited to the 6th century BC sage Laozi. Hiss! The elders sitting in the front row shivered and stared at Mr. Fang dumbfoundedly. The Dao which one can explain, is not the unchanging Dao. They chewed on Mr. Fang's words and felt like they were deep and mysterious. The disciples immediately memorized the words silently. Then, Mr. Fang changed the direction of the topic. So, we must put more thought on ourselves. More thought on ourselves. The white-robed elder Xiao Yunhe obviously didn't understand. Yes, Mr. Fang answered. You'll never fully understand it, but you can improve yourself continuously. During the process, your understanding of it will become deeper and deeper. Improve myself? Does it mean that we must cultivate in seclusion every day in the faction? The black-robed elder asked in bafflement. Of course not. Mr. Fang said, have you guys heard about e-sports? E-sports. The cultivators of the heavenly faction exchanged a look of confusion. I'll tell you a story. Then, Mr. Fang began to tell them the story about the duel at the top of Hua Mountain and shattering the void. TL note, these refer to classic Wuxia novels. This is esports? Xiao Yunhe asked curiously. No, Mr. Fang said, esports is different. Esports relies on competitions in the virtual world to do this. Then, he talked about esports professional leagues, and all kinds of godlike pro players. He discussed the godlike Yuzi and Demon King Faker. Godlike? Demon King? The elders were truly stunned. Senior, you mean, we can improve ourselves continuously through esports and eventually become godlike? But, Xiao Yunhe shook his head and said, Ancestral Master said that human strength can never break through the natural limit set for humans. Not everyone has such high and unique talents as you, Senior. You're right. Mr. Fang spread his hands and said, your Ancestral Master only said that human strength couldn't do it, and he didn't say anything about skills and techniques. As the saying goes, skills and techniques reach Dao. If you don't do esports, who will? So, Xiao Yunhe said in shock, we need to do the so-called esports. Each dream was different, but one thing was the same: the sense of extreme pressure. It felt as if huge mountains from the prehistoric times crushed down on them one after another without stopping. Standing in between the blurry palace, these cultivators vaguely felt like they were in a huge colosseum, and they seemed to be inside another vast space. Buzz! With a strange sound, those more than 10 ancient swords hanging before the Yuanyang city shop seemed to emit waves of strange energies. The ancient swords that were in deep sleep all gradually woke up. Even the most powerful sky-titled sword revealed a trace of a sharp presence. It was a presence of gathering strength to be ready for a great war. Each of the swords had an extremely powerful sword spirit. No one knew what figures could control and use them. I feel it. Master's presence, Master. The two swords, Qing Shuang and Qing Min, let out a series of sword cries. Our master had fallen long ago, right? This is our first master. The sky-titled saint swords seemed to be talking about their father who created them. The presence is distant, but I can still feel it. Sky 1-2. Sky 2-3, the cultivators who had stumbled into the cultivation realm saw a dark-clothed figure chanting in a low voice with a swift glance. Sword energies appeared around this figure one by one like an escort convoy. Endless godly lights fell before this figure, and the radiant wings slowly spread behind him. Looking like a vague god, the golden-haired figure had a blurry face. Dogu. Yi, Kin, rival, gods. Immortal hacking sword array. At the black-clothed figure's command, 108 flying swords instantly formed a horrifying major array. The sky and land seemed to be shattered by this horrifying vortex of sword array and revealed a large stretch of pitch-black void. It was early morning when Zhou Mo suddenly sat up from his bed. He seemed to have a nightmare in which terrifying battles occurred one after another. He saw faces from the East Continent and the West Continent. Then, he seemed to see the black-clothed figure leaving with his body covered in blood, and half of the swords were destroyed. However, he couldn't see any living creatures in his vision. Also, he seemed to see countless masters fall to the ground and die. He felt like he also heard laughs, some mocking and some disdainful, from the supreme river of stars. Tisk! Tisk, puny monkeys! As lowly as dust. Meanwhile, Mr. Fang had finished the mission of teaching Dao in the Immortal Tune Pavilion. The location for the new shop was decided. It was in the Dongxian cave abode not far from the Heavenly Faction. This was one of the busiest gathering places for cultivators and warriors in the East Continent. Different from the continent of immortal relics and the West Continent, the biggest gathering places for cultivators in this continent were all built in small worlds. The Dongxian cave abode was one of them. This shop was probably bigger than all the old shops combined if you only calculated the external area the shops covered instead of the interior spaces that the system had expanded. It was originally a huge palace that was as big as a soccer field in the eastern zone, but the system had rebuilt it. Now, it had modern-styled pure white walls and huge floor-to-ceiling windows. The black stately gate had a huge word written above it, Origins. Stepping into the shop on the orange hardwood floor, people would see rows of esports computers and comfortable leather chairs. The pure white radiant lights mingled with bluish-purple created a dreamlike atmosphere in the shop. Different from the other shops, the new shop had compartments for clubs and esports teams. Of course, the old shops would also be upgraded soon. At this moment, Mr. Fang received a new task. New task, a Wuxia game which is called Xiangxia Task Target. The number of players in the new shop reaches 100,000 task reward. Online game Sword Heroes Fate 3 System Remake version TL Note, this is a popular mer page, but it seems like another mobile game has the same name in English. Ugh! Mr. Fang scratched his head. Are you kidding me? A Journey to the Great Tang Dynasty. At this moment, the Heavenly Faction's elders led the most outstanding disciples into the shop. Mr. Fang even saw the white-haired and white-bearded Grand Elder who was holding a golden scroll sticking his head in and wondering, is this the place? Seeing Mr. Fang, he immediately walked over and said, "Dea ist friend Fang. Congratulations!" Of course, many other factions also came to congratulate Mr. Fang with gifts. After all, Mr. Fang had an awesome reputation here after those special effects were added to the video. Senior Fang. While searching for the new game named Esports, Gu Song looked at Mr. Fang embarrassedly and asked, "Can you tell me where the esports-related mystical realm is?" The shop has released the trailer of the new game, Mr. Fang said. Meanwhile, the players in the old shops obviously had also found the new stuff. The Knights of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion obviously had suffered for hours in Dark Souls today. At this moment, they suddenly saw a pop-up window in QQ trailer of the new game. What kind of new game? Elvin looked at the pop-up window on the screen curiously. A new game. The elves and assassins obviously had also seen it. A trailer too. Immediately, they clicked it open. Endless flames of war spread out like wildfire on the wasteland, destroying the sky and the land. In the ancient palace in the distant rift, the summoners gathered. Countless golden lights fell from the sky. With wings spreading out, an angel in golden armor came as if in answer to the summon. Before her, the deep darkness gathered and condensed into a demon's figure. Lights and shadows gathered and condensed into countless strange faces in the rift. Figures flashed by while they murmured in the dusk. The true power comes from the tearing inside. Many foes, one strike. A sword beam tore open the darkness. In the setting sun, the viewers seemed to see the figure swinging the sword. Ignorance is fatal. In the dark mist, a dark shadow faded. Now, the curtain is gradually lifted. Face the wind. The wanderer who was carrying a long saber appeared. When the saber slashed, gusts swept across the space, blocking the sun and the sky. What's this? Everyone watched the scenes full of saber and sword beams as wind blew and fire ignited. At this moment, it seemed an unknown tinder from somewhere was ignited. Chapter 779 Turbulent Homeland, the Pinnacle in Warrior's Dreams. The water that had a rotten smell surged up in huge waves, and something seemed to wake up slowly on the bottom of the deadly silent sea. The ancient immortal palace in the cultivation realm floated up. A pair of icy cold eyes that had been through many tribulations looked down on the dried up land. After so many tribulations, my heaven-hiding saint realm has declined too. Under the invisible force in the lowest level of the immortal palace, the crystal coffin sealed by ice began to open slowly. Time brings great changes, oceans turn into mulberry fields. In the continent of the immortal village, East Continent, a straight figure stood on the tallest mountain in a mountain range like an arrogant eagle, and intense sword lights occasionally glinted in his turbid eyes. Looking at the distant white clouds, the winding rivers, and the rolling mountains, he found the world both strange and familiar. Time passes as quickly as a white horse crossing a crevice. I wonder, if the Dugu sword tomb at the foot of heaven-seeking peak and the Dugu family, is still there. Tribulation. Destruction. I can smell it. In the huge fortress built with black rocks to the north of Kanglan City, the dwarf craftsmen made up the majority of the population. Right now, they sensed the ominous presence gradually spreading in the air. At the God's Peak in the radiant light godly nation stood a dreamlike palace made completely with crystals. Pure golden godly lights flashed in Princess Isabella's eyes. Her body floated up as if she was weightless. If saint-level masters were here, they would be horrified to see that the godly lights were being emitted from the inside of her body. Although the force was still not complete, it was indeed godly force. It came from within instead of an outside source, which meant that this force belonged completely to her. This time, I'll give you people a huge surprise. Her lips curved up while her eyes seemed to pierce through endless time and space and see that ancient battleground. Meanwhile, in Origin's Internet Club. With Instructor Fang's tutorial, the idle students had obtained great progress. At the untended graves, Saint Leiden had a small round shield in his left hand and a slim and long sword in the right hand. The huge halberd crashed down viciously like a falling mountain. However, he blocked it with his shield and diverted his opponent's force with a streak of strange strength. Boom! Parry! I did it! Standing before Lothric the younger prince and the last lord of Cinder, Saint Willie lifted his staff while magic light transformed into a thin barrier of light, blocking all the spells cast by his opponents. He waved his staff lightly, and countless magic crystals hovered around him like sharp swords. Meanwhile, magic lights transformed into soul arrows and shot out silently. Obviously, the players had begun to master these high-level battle skills and had toughened their minds during the process. Even when facing existences several times more powerful than themselves, they wouldn't be anxious. They fought these enemies calmly and even turned the tables. Of course, they were still a few steps away from clearing the stage. At this moment, most of the players in the shop had improved their battle skills to a certain level. The players who could calmly fight their way to the later stage of Dark Souls were truly grandmasters. Of course, some players were comparatively dull, such as some elves. On her screen, Rowling was still fighting Farron's breakdance crew. She fought with tears on her face. It was a nightmare for a clumsy player like her. "Ah! I can't do it," Rowling was extremely frustrated. "I'll watch the new TV series for a while." However, her battle skills had improved a lot while she went from being stuck with Gundar to fighting with Farron's undead legion. At this moment, Mr. Fang glanced at the task list. Task: Challengers Tutorial School, Elementary, Task Target: help the Muggle students reach the average, advanced level. Help the excellent students reach master level completeness. 1, 88%, 2, 74% task reward. League of Legends. Under Instructor Fang's tireless guidance, the idle and dumb students had made great progress, and the task was almost completed. "Sir, want to watch the new TV series?" While he read the system task, Mr. Fang heard this question. The branch shop in Dongxian Cave Abode didn't have many issues for Mr. Fang to handle, so he didn't stay in the new shop all the time. At this moment, he was sitting in the Kanglan City shop. He had sent Li Xiner and a few other old employees from the Yuanyang City shop to manage the new shop. Meanwhile, the Kanglan City shop began to recruit employees. Merlin. Elder Li Wei obviously was handling the recruitment of new employees for Mr. Fang. "Yes." Mr. Fang posted a message in Mr. Fang's group tour QQ group chat, "Group tour for the new TV series. The old driver is at the wheel, anyone wants to get on board. Which one do we watch first?" Nalan Mingxiu asked. "We'll watch Turbulent Homeland first." Su Tianji replied, "Count me in." Nalan Mingxiu chimed in, "Me." Zhang Xiaoyu added, "Me. Me. Me." Soon, a big group of people got on board. Meanwhile, in the branch shop at the Dongxian Cave Abode, the new customers were mostly disciples and elders of Heavenly Faction. The rest were cultivators and warriors sent by other factions to congratulate the opening of the shop and some curious passers-by. For now, there were hundreds of customers in the shop. In the new shop at Dongxian Cave Abode, the customers were hesitating over the many games and TV series while talking among themselves. "Which one shall we try first?" After all, the new shop had all the games and TV series. "There are so many, maybe we can try the new item in the shop," Elder Xiao Yunhe suggested. Soon, many people clicked open the Turbulent Homeland. Like Wind and Cloud, this TV series was initially designed to be in the wuxia genre. Later, due to the increase of power, the series obtained a certain flavor of fantasy and xiangxia but still retained the authentic wuxia system. It was why it became a pinnacle for warriors to look up it. It was also a stunning legend. At this moment, Nalan Hongwu, Zhongwu, Liang Haihu, and other warriors were also watching the show on Mr. Fang's tour bus. The scene before them dimmed. Then, they found that they were in an ocean of clouds while mountains swiftly moved back beneath their feet. Their gaze went up with the sword-like mountain peak which shot into the high sky. The mountain peak was so high that it seemed to touch the heavenly realm. Thunder and lightning bolts flashed around them. A person stood at the ultimate peak in the clouds. A warrior. Nalan Hongwu and other warriors, including the warriors in the Kanglan City shop, widened their eyes at the scene. Red and black demonic flames rose. Then, a sword was unsheathed, and dancing snake-like lightning energy engulfed it. In the darkness, the saber energy transformed into a blinding light. Instantly, even the booming lightning bolts dimmed before this light. Before this figure was a huge Tai Chi pattern composed of the huge black presence of yin and white presence of yang. The saber energy and the Tai Chi collided while countless streaks of horrifying essence spread out like a primeval storm, instantly knocking down mountains and cracking land. Are they also warriors? It must be noted that the human warriors in this world had worked hard for countless years to achieve their current status, but they were still inferior to cultivators. However, they saw that the horrifying presences released from the two warriors who were battling were great enough to shatter the sky and the land. Are these two people really warriors? They were instantly stunned by these two ultimate figures. This was the pinnacle stage that warriors had been dreaming about. It was an ancient story told in a traditional way. However, before them, like the legend of the White Snake, this TV series obviously also had a theme song. The difference was that this TV series mostly had theme music at the beginning instead of opening songs. Figures of great presence flashed before them like shooting stars accompanied by intense drum beats. Under the blood-colored setting sun, tens of thousands of ships in neat formations set off, carrying countless warriors on a sea journey toward the central region. The central region, Dongying region, and Demon Realm, a huge martial story slowly lifted its curtain. The chilly lights that were flashing like lightning bolts were exquisite moves. The hands moved with the presence of mountains or tsunamis, and they could shatter the sky and the land. This was a battle between true masters. At this moment, the viewers just didn't want the opening song to finish, feeling as if their blood was kindled like fire. Even the elves screamed silently, "This TV series is so good." Although they didn't understand what wuxia was, they screamed, "Wow, this is so cool." Are they the warriors in the East Continent? Even the saint-level masters such as Saint Willy and Saint Leiden couldn't help gasping in surprise. Hey! Tugu Xiao, the black-robed elder carrying a sword on his back, watched the opening song and exchanged a look with Elder Xiao Yunhe who sitting beside him. Oh! How come these people read poems when they make their appearances? The warriors in the deserted sea realm and spiritual state all watched the TV series in amazement. Before they saw the characters, ethereal tunes came to their ears from the sky. The elves in the West Continent were even more amazed. How come these warriors are so cool? Is this wuxia too? Nalan Hongguya was enthralled by the show. Obviously, only the customers in the old shops could understand it. Wuxia? What's wuxia? The saint-level masters in the West Continent asked in clumsy spirit state language that they had obviously just learned from the language inspiration spiritual spell. Aren't they a group of powerful warriors? What is this powerful stuff called wuxia? Despite their puzzlement, this group of people sat before the computers and watched the new TV series in fascination. As mentioned before, the continent of the Immortal Village had 3 factions, 4 sects, and 6 major cave abodes. Some of them had a very long history, and some of them had gradually grown in the long years into their current states. Everything declined so much. A black-clothed figure walked in the desolate valley and plucked a wild flower from the knee-length weeds which were as lush as green jade. In the abundant but turbid spiritual essence, there seemed to be fragments of broken array bases. He bent down and began to clean up the weeds. Suddenly, he looked up and saw another figure standing at the entrance of the valley. It was a bookish man, and he appeared to be a gentle teacher at first glance. His face was sickly pale, and he was so thin that it seemed like he had just recovered from a long-standing illness. It felt like a big wind would knock him down. If not for the horrifying phenomenon spreading from his feet, anyone would take him as an ordinary person. His black robe was so dark that it seemed to represent death. The ink-like presence spread out on the ground with each step he took, withering and killing all the lush plants it touched. Not only in the night but during the day, Zhou would see extremely weird things from nowhere whenever he closed his eyes. He seemed to see a black figure. The darkness spreading from him seemed to be able to devour the sky, the land, and the whole world. Evil Emperor! Shang Zhuwen! The darkness seemed to devour him too. Vaguely, he seemed to be watching the prehistoric time when ultimate masters were everywhere, and shockingly talented figures rose one after another. That era seemed to be the most glorious and prosperous time in human history. Then, he saw countless shooting stars fall from the sky. Under the cloud and mist was a wasteland by the ocean. Ah! He felt like the figures were extremely familiar to him. At this moment, he fell from the high sky too. From the endless void, there seemed to be a cold gaze devoid of any human emotions looking down. This pair of eyes seemed to be there eternally, gazing at each era like an omnipresent supervisor. Anyone and anything was naked before this pair of eyes, as if no secrets could escape from them. Meanwhile, in the darkness in the void, countless pairs of greedy eyes seemed to be gazing at the world as well. Like surging flames, the blazing desire for battle turned the whole jade-like valley into scorched land. Such a scene had happened before. However, in the next moment, even though the desire for battle was still there, the suffocating atmosphere evaporated instantly. After all, only one person could make another step forward. One man's success meant countless deaths. Countless people flourished like flowers in the summer and then withered and died. Tens of thousands of years later, no one would remember their names. Perhaps, this was their fate. It's over so soon. Although 4 episodes of the turbulent homeland were released, the warriors and cultivators felt like the hour-long episodes were as short as 3 minutes. I feel like the shop owner secretly shortened the time of each episode. Sala and the other elves stared at Mr. Fang suspiciously. They checked the length several times but couldn't find any fault with it. Resigned, they watched them again. Each of the 4 episodes had fierce battles, giving them a ton of inspiration. A half-god, a half-saint, and also a half-immortal, a full scholar, a full deist and a full sage. Tens of thousands of scrolls in the head, excel in pen and sword to support half the world. In extremely clumsy spirit state language, Mandarin, the elves recited the words while shaking their heads. I decided. Sala yelled, "This is my poem slogan." As an elf with good taste, she felt satisfied with this elegant and cool slogan. This is mine. Rowling snorted. Even the elves in the new shop acted like this, let alone the customers in the old shops, even though they had only watched the first 4 episodes. Obviously, watching these battles gave them a great boost. Hey! Task, Challengers Tutorial School, Elementary, completed task reward, League of Legends. Even peak saint level masters like us are scared by the stuff in the shop. At least, none of our artifact masters in the East Continent can make such mystical realms or TV series. Maybe. At this moment, the white-bearded and white-haired Grand Elder of the Heavenly Faction summoned some elders for questioning. Meanwhile, he turned to the last page of the ancient golden scroll. But there are exceptions to everything. This fragmented line of ancient words had been deciphered by him little by little. It seemed to be a story about an ancient era in which countless masters from the East Continent and the West Continent compete to reach a higher realm. The last few pages of the Golden Scroll seemed to have been torn off by someone purposefully, as if this person didn't want many people to know about this secret history. It sounds like, he glanced around and said, like the sword duel at the top of Hua Mountain. Mr. Fang did say that esports is like this duel at the top of Hua Mountain, right? The faction master, who was dressed in a reddish-brown robe, stood beside the Grand Elder and looked at the latter's ancient face. Elder, do you think the esports is real or not? Grand Elder Zudge King Yun looked at the incomplete scroll with his old eyes. Perhaps, it's real. The old man was obviously hesitant. Are you sure? As a sensible man, faction master Fang Qi, he felt like something wasn't right, and he wondered, is the Grand Elder muddled in head due to his old age? That was why he asked doubtfully. The white-haired old man glared at Fang Qi and reprimanded in a loud voice, "Of course, I'm sure. How can it now be? This little B** dares to doubt my words. When I managed the faction, you were still a small baby who was drinking milk somewhere. How dare you? Read for yourself. He threw the golden scroll left by the ancestral master of the faction at the faction master's face. Read for yourself. Masters competing, sword duel at the top of Hua Mountain. Widened-eyed, Fang Qi stared at the words on the golden scroll that were translated by the Grand Elder. It is exactly the same as what the shop owner had said. Then, the esports can really make us godlike. His expression instantly turned serious. While holding the golden scroll with both hands, he said shakily, You finally deciphered the ancestral master's golden scroll. Of course. Grand Elder Zhuge King Yun stroked his snow-white beard and said proudly, It's well worth my efforts in the last 200 years. Excellent. Faction Master Fang Qi shouted, looking ambitious as he felt that he would embark on a great path leading to immortality just like their ancient ancestors who had stunning talents. In this era, they would write their own legend. Since the new shop had just opened, Mr. Fang would come and check it occasionally. It was early morning, and some elders and disciples walked up to him respectfully. That esports? Mr. Fang pointed at the small blackboard. On it was written, Today's new game, League of Legends. The activation is free. This mystical realm, is free. They exchanged a look of astonishment. How can it be? Xiao Yunhe said in shock. Did the shop owner say that it can help us become godlike? You can become Ascendance Realm Masters by cultivation. Mr. Fang rolled his eyes at them. Do you charge money for that? Xiao Yunhe's face turned stiff. Senior, you're right. Meanwhile, in the Kanglan City shop, the elves obviously had also seen this new game. Free again. There's a free mystical realm. As a member of the Magic Union, Adolf was also surprised. We had discounts last time. Dicas felt indignant for Mr. Fang and said, Now, it's free of charge. The shop owner is so kind. But will the shop go bankrupt if it does business this way? It's not like that. These mystical realms are hard to sell. Instead, they are very popular. But the shop owner still released a free mystical realm. The elves were also touched. The shop owner is so kind-hearted. Yes. He is. Rowling had bought 10 games last time and had a flat wallet now. Therefore, she was so touched that she shed tears. The shop owner is so considerate of us. Right. Sala seconded that, if the new game were expensive, I would have to consider if I should buy it. I'm surprised that it's free of charge. Cheer for the new game that we can play for free. The handsome young man dressed in a mage's robe and standing at the counter was Merlin, the new employee of the shop. I think we should celebrate it with a bottle of Coke. Right. I want a bottle of Coke too. 1 bottle for me. Spicy sticks, too. Let's go buy some as well. Rowling suggested, we were planning to buy the new game. The money we save on the new game is money earned. Right now, the door of the shop was wide open. The spies from the Radiant Light Godly Nation sneaked glances into the shop. Origin's Internet Club is losing money again. If the situation continues, we'll win without a fight. In the Radiant Light Godly Nation, Saint Heinz exchanged a look with Saint Dullen as he said with a smile, free of charge. The previous discounts were big, but they still could earn back the cost. But free of charge now. After all, any growth in strength was not without cost. How could mystical realms that could increase people's strength and battle skills continue to operate without the support of energy? Free of charge? Our enemy is powerful, but it's a pity that he wants to be a selfless saint. Saint Dullen shook his head and said with a smile, he's too much of an idealist and will bring destruction to himself. Maybe, a red-robed senior priest said with confidence, we can remove some parts of the restrictions on the residents in the remaining faith nations? So more people will visit their mystical realms and thus accelerate their destruction. Also, the Stand Kingdom. I think we can remove some of the restrictions, but we must work harder to hunt down Grand Mage Merlin. Do it secretly. Meanwhile, the players in the shops all sat before their computers and turned on the game with Coke or spicy sticks in their hands. They started the game with the dream of becoming godlike. Esports, here I am. Magical lights flowed in the area, and the wall with neatly engraved magic runes before them revealed a battered land. Although it was a virtual scene, it looked very real. It seemed to be the world outside this ancient hall, or it was just telling a story that had happened in this world. The flames of war spread from the plains to the distant snow mountains. The dark sky was full of shadows from the void. Purple shooting stars flew across the sky into the distance. When it knocked down half a mountain, the viewers realized that it was a wave-blinding magic light. Flames of war burned up villages and devoured nations. Countless people shed blood on this vast land. Finally, a huge earthquake and an extremely horrifying magic storm struck. People finally realized that the world could no longer stand the damages afflicted by the War of Runes. The Grand Mages in Valoran gathered with countless powerful summoners and reached the agreement to manage conflicts in a controllable and systematic way. Therefore, the League of Legends was founded. All the conflicts would be solved by duels between great champions summoned by summoners with different political opinions on this arena. As more and more summoners and champions joined in, no one was as stupid as to mess with so many powerful existences. Therefore, despite the continuous conflicts between hostile political factions, order returned to the continent. The war in this world will exist in this way from now on. As the queen of the elf clan, Kel-Ebel had lived for a long time and knew how horrifying wars could be, and that was why she was amazed by the method. I didn't know that wars could take place in this form. Wars can be fought in virtual reality. After watching the background of the game, the virtual image before them showed two options. One was for beginners who would enter the newbies tutorial to learn the basic operations, the other option was entering the game directly. Since it was a free game, most of the players decided to try it. After their hard experience in Dark Souls 3, they no longer overestimated themselves and watched the tutorial first to understand the basic rules. After that, they chose to play the higher-level PvP mode to battle with other players. The players in the shop grew steadily. In the Kanglan City shop alone, there were tens of thousands of players, and that was the number in the early morning instead of peak hours. Since there was only one server named Ionia in the game right now, and everyone was a beginner, almost everyone instantly got into the game. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu turned on the live stream as she queued for a match. She even got an elf to queue up for a match together with her. Of course, QQ voice chat was necessary. Oh! I got in. This was from the private QQ private chat channel named Elder Suitianji's Palace. Sala and Nalan Mingxiu were listed in one small room with Suitianji, Lan Yan, Su Zixin, and some visiting elves. They were all girls. Meanwhile, people like Nalan Hongguo and Anhui were also queuing for a match in their respective QQ channels. We're in as well. In the new shop at Dongxian Cave Abode, the disciples of the Heavenly Faction were matched up with opponents. Prompt: you can choose and summon a champion whom you like. But in Summoner's Rift, any champion can only unleash part of their strength and stay in a relative balance. Prompt: after your champion die, they will revive at the base after a short time of recovery since you only summon the projected images of the champions with only a percentage of their strength. Prompt: you can locate everyone in the fog of war through the magic map in your hands. After a series of prompts, most players entered the game. Swexu, who do you plan to choose? Before the players was a simple map listing all kinds of champions and their 3D virtual images. What is broken can be reforged. A valiant female voice sounded in the QQ voice channel, and Nalan Mingxiu had chosen a female champion who was holding a huge broken blade. As with other games, the players could only choose the same gender champions except for the non-humanoid champions. Oh! I was planning to choose this one. Since Nalan Mingxiu had chosen this character, Sala had to choose another one. I'll choose this one. The Frost Archer. We elves excel in archery. My blade is yours. In Dongxian Cave abode shop, the black-robed elder Duguxiao's screen showed a weathered face under goggles. My esports journey begins. Start. With heavy music, they gradually entered the world with their champions' strengths and souls. Rows of magic crystals and turrets sat on the vast land majestically, and the lush ocean-like green forests covered the whole valley. Lady Luck is smiling. The unseen blade is the deadliest. In the shadows, a pair of long and narrow eyes opened slowly. Stand with me, brothers and sisters. A battle flag was raised high. Magic? I'll show you real magic. The magic storms from the ancient times flashed with dangerous colors. They will receive you like champions. Blood dyed the land red. Voices, either deep, luring, or deadly, rose in their ears. Behind them, a huge and grand soul slowly woke up from deep sleep. They were summoned here, and they were the greatest champions, the strongest warriors, and the most legendary mages. They were also the most powerful weapons. At this moment, they gathered here. The sky was lit up while lights shone all over the land. Welcome to Summoner's Rift. The war began at this moment. As usual, Xiao Yulf stood behind the players and watched them play with a plate of dried fruits from the Wind and Moon Pavilion. At this moment, he was watching Yu's Highway, a female employee of the shop, as she chose her champion. This? How come some characters are grey? Xiao Yulf pointed at the screen and asked. It's because we can't choose characters of the opposite gender. Yu's Highway waved her hand as if it was obvious. You've never played games before, you don't know it. If you can't choose them, they shouldn't be here. Why make them grey? As an expert in game guides, Xiao Yulf intuitively felt like there was something fishy about it. How can you say that I don't know it? After all, everyone was making huge progress while Xiao Yulf was the only one who couldn't play games. He had no choice but to diligently practice the ultimate techniques of at home and had become a master who excelled in every spiritual spell of the Liu Yundaist Palace. He knew the game's guides thoroughly and could recite them backward. How can you slander me this way? Ha 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 ha. The people around him laughed. Gongzi Xiao, you want to play online? You guys. His face turned red, feeling like he would burst. Hey! At this moment, Yu's Highway found that she could click on those grey champions of the opposite gender. It was just that she couldn't lock in her choice. When she tried to lock in, a prompt popped up, your account isn't a disciplined player account. Please get appraised first. Hey! Ugh! Xiao Yulf stared at the screen wide-eyed. Does it mean I can? Boss! When can I get to play games? While ignoring the people who were still mocking him, he immediately contacted Mr. Fang. Since Xiao Yulf couldn't even use QQ, Mr. Fang received a text message from him via the communication jade. Oh! Mr. Fang glanced at his privileges. As new branch shops were opened and the number of players grew, Mr. Fang had gained more and more privileges which were almost the same as those of a real shop owner. In the page of employee allocation, the previously grey line for issuing tasks to employees had now lit up. Xiao Yulf, -5-star employee, can upgrade stars by doing tasks. 0 star equals to an ordinary customer, -4 to -1 stars equal to customers with restricted level tasks that can be assigned to employees. Tasks that were fitting for this employee, walkthrough creation, competition commentary. Mr. Fang replied, I'll assign some tasks to you. If you do them well, I'll personally remove the ban on you. Really? With a long roar, a figure in a yellow shirt and a white robe shot up into the clouds. The emotions that were suppressed inside him for a long time now burst out. Ah ha 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 ha. The figure shot through layer after layer of thick clouds like a cannonball. He was elated. Suddenly, a middle-sized passenger spiritual boat slowly flew out from the clouds. Boom! A huge noise came from the sky. Mr. Fang! Yu's highway sent a message, Gongzi broke one bone in his neck and has applied for leave for a few weeks. She posted a screenshot in which half of a man's body was stuck in the bottom of a spiritual boat. Oh! On the other side of the shop. The system remake of League of Legends had obviously made many optimized changes on top of the original version. Situated between Fruljord and a remote forest, Summoner's Rift was one of the few places full of magic power. It looked just like the scene that flashed in the cinematic trailer and the opening cinematics. It was in one corner of the lush magic forest. Wolves and other wild beasts in the forest were resting in this tranquil spot. There were also all kinds of magic creatures and monsters. The boundary was sealed by a magic shield. Through the light of the shield at the boundary, the players could see the high mountains and clear sky outside the rift. Under the blazing sunshine, the jungle off the roads was filled with the ear-grating sounds of insects. Due to the intense magic power, even spiritual energy could only cover a small area in this place. Therefore, the vast areas of grassland on the paths were changed into dense jungles full of bushes, weeds, and trees. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu glanced at the exemplar of Dimasha dressed in shiny golden armor who had walked out together with her. "We shall rest when we are dead." With that said, they stepped into the top jungle with great solemnness and didn't even look back. They crouched behind the brush. "Hey!" At this moment, two people walked out from the opposite direction. One wore heavy armor with a huge axe in his hands, and the other carried a heavy two-handed big sword. Different from the original version, the players controlled the champions' projected images, so they didn't speak the scripted lines. Sometimes, these champions would remind the summoners. Of course, if the champion had a cold personality, they wouldn't speak more than twice in one match. Obviously, Riven wasn't such a champion. Defy Nakus and taste your own blood. The two people on the red side were charging up with full force under the summoner's control. Choose your own path. Nalan Mingxiu seemed to feel that another soul's awareness and force were flowing in her body, that voice was reminding her, a sword mirrors its owner. A new force flowed into her body as if she had mastered a special sword technique. Broken wings. The huge blade with dark green rune energy took her forward, and she flew up in an elegant and pretty arc like a butterfly. Then, she leaped into the brush nearby. "Hey! Where's she?" As a player who had played Assassin's Creed, it was possible to instantly disappear from the opponent's vision into a brush. The two people exchanged a look. The rogue mage said, "She is alone." The hand of Nakus replied, "Let's go and have a look." The two players walked into the brush in excitement. "Don't run! Hee hee! What is broken can be reforged." A huge blade fell from the sky. The huge momentum almost shattered the ground, bouncing the two players into the sky at the same time. Dimasha. Almost at the same time, a huge lance thrust out like a fierce dragon. First blood. It seemed like little had changed due to the loss of the first blood. The whole rift was full of a solemn presence. The blue side that Nalan Mingxiu was on had a LeBlanc player in the mid lane, and her enemy was a Zed player. In the most prominent place in Dongxian Cave abode shop sat a white-clothed woman. With a snow-white face and smooth skin, she looked very proud with a cold expression. With clothes whiter than snow and a face prettier than jade, she looked like a fairy from heaven. At the moment, she was controlling the deceiver to dodge her opponent's attacks with focused attention. This was her first time playing esports. Behind her stood a group of average disciples who were learning from her by watching. "Watch carefully," one elder urged them from behind. "Watch how your elder senior sister plays esports." "Yes." The disciples behind her were full of excitement and admiration. "Hiss! This person is strong. How come he can hit senior sister with shurikens?" She didn't dare to lower her guard. As the elder senior sister of Heavenly Faction and one of the most outstanding disciples in the faction, she had personally heard from the elders that this esports could improve her so much that she would become godlike. Therefore, she must do her best in each battle. Meanwhile, she would set a good example to these junior sisters and brothers, so they could learn the essence of esports. This way, the whole faction could progress. Controlling the deceiver, Yuan didn't dare to lower her guard while she fought with the Z player. They fought fiercely with shurikens and magic spells. The magic lights shot out like cannonballs. Sigil of Silence. Old version of LeBlanc's Q ability, which can silence the enemy, swoosh. In a flash, her opponent Zed reacted very swiftly and moved back sideways. The yellow light flew past his ear. Want to hit me? The Zed had a smug smile on his face. At this moment, a sigil turned back in the sky, and it crashed onto his back with vicious force. Pu. The Zed player instantly spewed out a mouthful of blood. The player sitting in a corner in the half-city shop turned grim. So strong. This person is indeed a master. Magic light flashed, and that figure appeared before him instantly. The horrifying magic energy exploded instantly in the tiny space. The Zed player tried to move but found that the strength in his body seemed to have been sealed, and he couldn't use any abilities. Terrifying. She sealed the strength in my body while injuring me. This must be an ultimate master. Run! In a hurry, he rolled on the ground and dashed back wildly with a horrified expression. With repeated waves of the staff, a chain instantly shot out with a lightning-like magic attack. The attacks in a battle between masters were cast with lightning speed. Although 2 of the 3 attacks missed, her powerful presence of tanking 3 consecutive tower shots scared the Zed player witless. He didn't dare to come up again. Satisfied, she returned to her lane. Elder senior sister, you're so strong. Behind her, the disciples exclaimed. My opponent is also a master. Yuan looked calm and modest. He looked to be suppressed, but he showed his weakness only to make me lower my guard. As a result, I got hit 3 times from the tower. He's a very experienced fighter. Then, what do you do? One disciple asked anxiously. How do we deal with this situation? Yuan took out a bottle of red health potion. He doesn't know that I've prepared the top quality health potion. After I take it, my injuries will slowly heal. I've bought 5 bottles of such potion. Senior sister, you anticipated this. The disciples standing behind her said in surprise. Well, you forced back a strong enemy but can still keep a cool head. In your first try with the esports, you're well prepared with a good strategy, keeping everything in control. Excellent! Excellent! The white-robed elder in the back clapped his hands and praised. Elder, thank you. Yuan's attention returned to the game again. Look! The enemy has brought health potion too. Everyone saw that Zed's injuries were also healing slowly. I already said that my opponent is also a master. It seems like he thought of the potions too. Appreciation appeared in Yuan's eyes, and she got even more thrilled. I didn't expect that I would encounter such a great rival so easily in this esports. The 2 rivals fought even more cautiously until they reached level 6 and consumed all 5 bottles of health potions. At this moment, their murderous spirit rose sharply. The final moment comes. It is about time to see who wins. Yuan said. The average disciples watching from behind her got tense up as well. Perhaps, this is the true meaning of the sword duel at the top of Hua Mountain. They wished that they were standing on the battleground themselves. At this moment, Yuan controlled the deceiver to move. The move was so fast and blurry that it seemed like teleportation. She appeared before Zed instantly. However, Zed appeared at where Yuan's deceiver had been a moment ago. The unseen blade is the deadliest. The player controlling Zed murmured the line that his champion said most often. When the blade slashed out, the shadow that was staying where he had been instantly made the same move. Boom! The magic cannonball crashed down with a booming noise. After throwing out his shurikens, he retreated immediately and dodged the 3rd shot from the turret. Both opponents were highly tense. Soon, Yuan reacted and used Mimic. The distortion that was as fast as teleportation helped her dodge one attack of his shurikens. However, her opponent threw the other shuriken at the deceiver's landing position as if he had anticipated her next move. Hiss! He anticipated it. So strong. At this moment, both people's HPs were low, and they ran out of health potion too. The braver warrior would triumph in a fierce battle. This was the moment to end the battle. Fight it out. As long as her sigil locked onto her opponent, the latter couldn't escape from her. It would also seal the opponent's strength for a little while. Together with Ethereal Chain, she would undoubtedly kill her opponent. She launched 2 magic lights instantly. However, she saw that her opponent, Zed, vanished. Death mark. Yuan found that this horrifying killer seemed to have snuck into her shadow and moved with her like a shadow. She couldn't get rid of it. My goodness! The disciples standing behind her stared at the scene in a daze. So strong! Don't panic! As the eldest disciple, Yuan calmed down immediately. My distortion can instantly return me to the previous position, he can't catch up with me. Swoosh! Swoosh! The moment that she heaved a sigh of relief, she heard a gust with sharp whistling sound coming toward her face. Careful! He's still here! Ah! While controlling the deceiver, Yuan was startled and then raced toward her base. Run! Boom! Zed finally realized that something wasn't right and immediately retreated. Boom! The turret killed the player Saber King. The deceiver had fallen to the ground in her panic. In embarrassment, Yuan controlled the deceiver to get up from the ground. It's over finally! You won! Applause came from behind her. It seems like senior sister is stronger after all. No. He has help. At this moment, a glint flashed in the eyes of the elder who was watching from behind. Suddenly, a figure appeared in a corner. Be careful! Elder, don't worry. I still have flash. Yuan became tense again. I can dodge his attack the moment he uses it. Good. You're well prepared and can keep calm in the face of danger. The opponent was a blind monk whose eyes were covered. Not able to see, he intuitively kicked at the foot of the wall sonic wave. A white light wave instantly shot out. Flash! Almost at the same time, Yuan used flash and crashed toward the sonic wave that was shooting out from the corner of the wall. Prompt, player Azura slain elder senior sister Yuan. Chapter 785 Take the Ancestral Master to Origins Internet Club. There were also spirits and wild mountain beast demons who lived in the hidden blessed cave abodes. These factions had deep roots in this land and knew everything happening on this continent. In the Xiaoao cave abode, if the Dongxian cave abode was only a city-like gathering place for cultivators, then the Xiaoao cave abode was absolutely a cultivator nation inside a small world. Under the leadership of the abode master, Lynx Uzi, it had prospered. This heavenly faction. In the Xiaoao cave abode, the spiritual essence gathered like a vortex in the deep and tranquil spiritual mountain that was covered in all kinds of blooming spiritual flowers, and a grand palace hovered in the air in the support of an invisible force. It looked like an immortal abode. A few ethereal-looking deists gathered here. Have you found out the information about the so-called Origin Internet Immortal Palace? In the center sat a deist appearing to be in his 30s. Wearing a pale purple deist robe and a grand silver dragon headpiece, he looked very elegant. Although the others had white hair and ancient faces, this purple-robed deist emitted a presence that made others sure of his identity. He was the core figure in this group. What's this heavenly faction up to anyway? An old man sitting beside him said in bafflement. Usually, even if a supreme master built a so-called internet immortal palace named Origins which offers better cultivation results than cultivation rooms, cultivation towers, or some internal mystical realms of factions, how come even their grand elder Zhuge King Yun came out of seclusion? He even led their elders and disciples to that place in person. Even if it is a cultivation mystical realm built by a supreme master, it is still a cultivation mystical realm. It is used to train disciples. We've also sent some disciples to try the mystical realm as well, but you're a peak ascendance realm master, which is the top level for cultivators. Why are you going there and cultivating in this mystical realm? Even if he becomes the #1 master in the world, can he really ascend and become a god? Another old man said in disbelief with widened eyes and a bristling beard. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked up in a hurry. Abode master. Elders. After greeting them, this man said in a low voice, our disciples found the key information by accident. Grand Elder Zhuge King Yun and other elders of the heavenly faction are cultivating in a mystical realm named League of Legends in order to become godlike. What? The elder who had been talking froze for a second before saying, you, say it again. Become godlike, the middle-aged cultivator repeated. Ridiculous. The heavenly faction has always kept their secrets well. How come you got this information? This critical information. At this moment, in the new shop at the East Continent Elder, Faction Master Fang Qi he asked in a low voice, this is a big issue, shouldn't we keep it a secret? Sui he, Grand Elder Zhuge King Yun stroked his long beard and said mildly, first of all, Palace Master Fang has generously told us this method. Do you think he would like us to keep it a secret? Second of all, have you understood the true meaning of the stories that Palace Master Fang told us? Meaning? Faction Master Fang Qi he looked at the Grand Elder curiously. No one is perfect. The Grand Elder's deep eyes looked out of the shop. Each step we take improves our minds, physical bodies, cultivation strength, eye sharpness, and spirits. With continuous improvement and constant purification, we've come to the Ascendance Realm. You mean, the more imperfections we have, the more improbable that we can stand out from the many ultimate masters. A glint flashed in Zhuge King Yun's eyes that had never been seen before. So, Feng Qi he concluded, only the godlike figures can do that. However, the godlike figure isn't a title that we give to ourselves, they are people who stand out from countless ultimate masters. Just like Demon King Faker and the godlike Yuzi that Senior Fang mentioned. While saying that, Feng Qi he felt uncomfortable and thought, how come these names are so strange? Right. Feng Qi he was still uncertain. Is it believable? I've reached the pinnacle stage 1,000 years ago. I've diligently pursued this for almost 1,000 years. A trace of indescribable loss appeared in Zhuge King Yun's turbid eyes. Our ancestors had pursued this for countless years. Only the golden scroll left by the ancestral master records a clue, and it refers to that war long ago. It would be better if we believe that it's true. Meanwhile, in the Xiaoao cave abode, Ling Xuzi solemnly stared at the middle-aged cultivator who had just delivered the information. Li Wu, I know you're always reliable. How did you acquire this information? Is it true? Ling Xuzi's eyes slightly squinted, feeling uncertain for the first time in his life. In the Xiaoao cave abode, there was an ancient sacrificial shrine, and no one knew when it was built. It had the most concentrated spiritual essence and was very close to the place where Ling Xuzi and his companions were sitting. The shrine was guarded by layers of arrays which had been left from the ancient times. These arrays were intact since they were maintained each year. However, no one knew that this ancient and insignificant shrine had a huge ice palace under it. There was a legend circulating in the Xiaoao cave abode. Their ancestral master from the prehistoric time would return and lead them to true ascendance. Of course, not many people truly believed it. After all, it had been so long ago. Even peak ascendance realm masters would have turned to dust. However, in the center of the huge ice palace under the shrine, there was an ice coffin completely sealed by 10,000-year-old ice. Suddenly, a huge noise came from inside the ice coffin. Even Ling Xuzi felt it distinctively. Boom! It was another huge shake. What's happening? Ling Xuzi exchanged a look with others. It seems to come from underground, one elder said fearfully. Ling Xuzi said in a cold voice, "Come with me, and let's have a look." Complicated arrays covered the space under the shrine. Like an underground palace, it extended to the depths of the underground. In the depths was a huge palace. "Open it," Ling Xuzi said calmly. The ancient palace's gate, which had been sealed for many years, was opened. In the center was a huge ice coffin. "Ancestral Master," an ancient voice said shakily, "the lid of the Ancestral Master's coffin is moving." The moment he said it, the coffin lid broke open. Ah! They had never felt so uneasy and anxious before. At this moment, a blue-robed white-haired young man who looked to be in his 30s floated up from the coffin. Everyone, including the elders, was shaking violently. Only Ling Xuzi's expression looked a bit better. After all, such an existence was like a myth for them. At this moment, this mythical figure appeared before them alive. "Good. Good. Good. After countless years, I'm surprised that you've come to this stage." At this moment, all the spiritual essence in the whole spiritual mountain seemed to come toward him. "Have you heard any information about gods or immortals?" He calculated with his fingers and said, "It's about time to come out, yes." Ling Xuzi immediately remembered the previous conversation. "Lead the way." This young man's eyes seemed to be devoid of any human emotions. But what?" the young man asked coldly. "I said, lead the way." "Yes." Ling Xuzi gritted his teeth and yelled, "Take Ancestral Master to the Origins Internet Club." "Club." The young man flew down lightly like a feather as if he was weightless. The strange thing was that there had been no signs or phenomenon for such a big event. Except for the spiritual essence that was gathering in the mountain, there wasn't a special sign. Everything was silent as if the signs had been suppressed purposefully. "Don't be surprised." With his hands clasped behind his back, the Xiaoao Ancestral Master walked forward silently, and it seemed like his feet didn't really touch the ground. If one looked at the ground carefully, one would see that each of his steps was only millimeters above the ground, and each step had the same distance from the ground. However, not a particle of dust was disturbed when he walked on the ground. It seemed like his movements didn't disturb any particle in the air. Almost no one in the world could achieve such a control ability. Behind him, Ling Xuzi and the elders were discussing in fear. Why did the Ancestral Master come out so suddenly? How come there was no sign at all? It must be noted that such rare saint-like existences would cause natural phenomena when they made a sudden appearance. A while ago, we heard collective singing from auspicious beasts and smelled rare scents all over the mountains. I told you that something huge would happen in our cave abode, but then it coincided with Palace Master Fang's appearance in our continent of Immortal Village. While slapping his thigh, Ling Xuzi suddenly understood it. We thought that the signs are for the arrival of Palace Master Fang, who is like a sage. But it turned out that we were wrong. Maybe the signs are for both of them, another elder said, otherwise, the Ancestral Master wouldn't have come out so suddenly. He glanced at the great palace behind him and said in fear, the Ancestral Master came out from there just to visit Origins Internet Club. Are you sure that we can find clues in the so-called Origins Internet Club? Xiaoao Ancestral Master looked back at them. We're sure. We're very sure. The elders yelled. The middle-aged man named Li Wu said as if he was asking for a compliment, Ancestral Master, I heard it with my own ears. The Grand Elder and all the others in Heavenly Faction are determined to have at least one of them become a godlike figure. Hee hee. Ha 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 ha. A bunch of little guys in the new generations. How can they do that? The Xiaoao Ancestral Master said with a sneer, listen up. While pausing his steps, he said overbearingly as if he was looking down on the whole world, even at the time when our cave abode was just established, those few most powerful masters in the world didn't dare to say this in front of me. Godlike figure. Only the most powerful people can rule the world. Ancestral Master, you're right. Ling Xuzi said solemnly, only the true masters in the world deserve to make that step. If everyone could do it, what is the worth of the title godlike figure? Soon, they came to the door of the internet cafe. Origins. Xiaoao ancestral master shook his head and stepped into the shop. Attendant. Upon entering the shop, Li Wu yelled, "Attendant! I'll buy." He looked back and counted, 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. "Get us 10 membership cards and 10 bottles of Coke." After saying that, he tossed a bag of top-quality jade crystals, the equivalent of magic crystals in value, onto the counter. Okay. Having managed a new shop before, Li Xiner had become Mr. Fang's special new shop manager. Besides, Li Lanruo, who had come over as an exchange student with Zhang Xiaoyu, often helped out in the shop. Wah! Who's he? He looks so grand. Before she issued the cards, Li Lanruo looked up and saw a young man dressed in an antique blue robe walking over. With shoulder-length white hair, he had an ancient presence. "He has a great background," Li Wu said proudly. "All you need to know is that he has a very high and noble status. He will be a godlike figure in the future." "Well done." While slightly squinting his eyes, Xiaoao ancestral master carefully sensed and found. "I sensed the presence of that godly item from this little girl named Li Lanruo. Even though it's very vague." His lips curved up. She must have had some contact with that godly item, or something on her once came in contact with it. Even though it is well hidden, the little tricks of juniors in the new generations can't escape my eyes. At this moment, Li Wu handed the membership cards to everyone and turned on League of Legends. "Please take a look." He lowered his voice slightly and said, "If you want to become a godlike figure, you must do it through this mystical realm in the shop." Mystical realm. Xiaoao ancestral master thought for a moment and remembered that back in his time, there were ancient and mysterious scrolls containing unimaginable opportunities and fortunes. Right, this is it. In his mind, everything connected, creating a ripple in his heart that had been as calm as an ancient well. "I'm surprised that I, Xiaoao ancestral master, am the first one to find it." He had only seen a little but could make more connections in his mind. According to his treasure hunting and cultivation experience before he established the cave abode, this girl must have the key which can open this mystical realm. In this mystical realm, I can find the location of that godly item. Pinnacle stage of Ascendance realm. Then, Xiaoao ancestral master coldly glanced at Grand Elder Zhuge King Yun who was sitting not far from him. "I'm surprised that after so many years, there's such a powerful master among the new generations. Are you here for that path too?" He said coldly, "I will not lose to you, a bunch of little guys in the new generations." Grand Elder Zhuge King Yun seemed to sense something as well. He looked over and said with a mild smile, "You're a senior, but on this issue, we must see who has the ability to do it without backing away." Humph! With a snort, Xiaoao ancestral master sat before a computer and turned on League of Legends. Then, he opened the cap of the Coke bottle and sipped it gracefully. Then, he stared at the Coke bottle so intently that his eyeballs almost popped out. After that, he took a big swig. Ah! Good liquor! He wiped off the residue on his lips and said heartily, "Ha ha ha! What liquor is this? It feels strong in the mouth and stings like a hot knife in the throat. The color looks like that of immortal grape nectar but has a deeper tint and a richer taste. I'm surprised that there's such great liquor in the new generations. I haven't tasted such good liquor for a long time. It's really good liquor." Abode Master Ling Xuzi also lifted a bottle of Coke and said in a loud voice, "With this great liquor, I'll propose a toast to Ancestral Master for his return. To show my respect, I'll empty it first." Then, he gulped down the whole bottle. A great drinker! A great drinker indeed! Ancestral Master, that's Coke. It's not a liquor, it's Coke. The cultivators from the Xiaoao cave abode looked at the bottles in their hands curiously. Then, what is coke? Coke is, Li Wu waved his fingers and thought for a moment. Coke is verb. It's. Ling Xuzi and other elders looked at the disciple in puzzlement. It's verb. Xiao Ao ancestral master looked at Ling Xuzi in bafflement. Verb. Nonplussed, the elders from the Xiao Ao cave abode looked at their ancestral master and then. Verb. 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 Horrified, the other customers in the shop stared at the new players who kept burping. Who? No. I just couldn't control myself. After a long while, Ling Xuzi finally regained his breath. The few elders also exhaled deeply. Then, they stared at Li Wu and asked, "What's wrong with this coke?" "This," Li Wu had sweat on his forehead. "This, you didn't drink it right. You drained one big bottle in one breath. Of course, you'd burp. Is there a special way to drink this coke?" One elder glared at him and said, "When I drink liquor on the regular, I don't need a special method to drink it. The common liquor doesn't need a special method," Xiao Ao ancestral master said. "However, when I drank the immortal grape nectar, I did it in a complicated method. Of course, this coke has to be drunk in a special way." The Xiao Ao ancestral master instantly got interested. "Then, tell me how to drink this coke." Li Wu took a straw from the counter and inserted it into the coke bottle. Then, he sipped it with an intoxicated expression, looking as happy as an immortal. Li Wu praised exuberantly, "This is the right way to drink coke." Then, he sipped again through the straw and said, "Some people, drinking directly from the bottle, it's almost as rude as cows chewing on peonies." "I think this beverage shouldn't be called coke," one elder said eagerly, "this should be called immortal happy nectar." "Good name. From now on, we'll call it immortal happy nectar." Seeing Li Wu sip coke through the straw, the newcomers understood that they couldn't drink too much in one sitting and reluctantly turned their eyes from Li Wu's coke. Feeling uneasy under their stares, Li Wu said in a hurry, "Elders, ancestral master, there are several other kinds of happy nectars in the shop. There are more." They immediately looked at him. "What happy nectars?" 1 minute later, they each had a bottle of happy nectar on their desks and finally started the journey in League of Legends. "What's the situation in this mystical realm? Are there any dangers?" The Xiao Ao ancestral master asked. "From the few words that I've heard about it, I think this mystical realm is very dangerous since we'll have to put all our spiritual awareness into it." Ling Xuzi said, "Li Wu, hurry up and explain the mystical realm to Ancestral Master." "Ancestral Master, don't worry." Li Wu patted his chest and assured Xiao Ao Ancestral Master, "I'll first invite Ancestral Master and the elders into my lobby." Soon, Ling Xuzi and the elders from Xiao Ao Cave Abode all accepted Li Wu's invitation and entered his summoner's lobby. Li Wu said, "When we fight, the 5 of us won't be separated. There's such a method." Xiao Ao Ancestral Master laughed and said, "Well done. You've already understood the rules of this mystical realm. Does it have a name?" "This is called sitting 5 in a row in the internet cafe." Li Wu explained. "Good name. Sitting 5 in a row in the internet cafe." Xiao Ao Ancestral Master sipped the happy nectar cheerfully and started the journey of sitting 5 in a row in the internet cafe. Since they skipped the tutorial, Xiao Ao Ancestral Master obviously knew nothing about the game, and so did Ling Xuzi and others. "How do I choose from these options?" "That's easy." Li Wu said, "Ancestral Master, you choose the Death Singer. This is awesome. And this? Cryo Phoenix." Then, he explained some basic operations to them. Death Singer. Xiao Ao Ancestral Master looked this champion in bafflement. "Karthus is a harbinger of oblivion," zealously devoted to the beauty and clarity of death. Yearning to be one with death, he journeyed to the Shadow Isles and willingly offered himself to the undead. Karthus transformed into the Deathsinger, the only horrifying lich in the world to deliver the blessed gift of annihilation. He's so powerful. Then, I'll choose him, also, these so-called summoners' abilities. Teleport. Revive, Li Wu said, I saw others use them. This Deathsinger can revive after death. When he has these on, he's unrivaled. TL note, this is the old league, so some skills have been reworked. He can revive? And there's a summoner's spell to revive. Xiao Ancestral Master imagined the scene in which the champion was killed and then revived, was killed again and revived again. His lips curved up. This is awesome. Then, he looked a bit worried. If this champion is so powerful, isn't it unfair to others? It means that no one can defeat me. How about my champion? Lynx Uzi pointed at his cryo-phoenix and asked. Such an auspicious bird has great abilities, right? Rebirth. Li Wu introduced, this cryo-phoenix is very powerful with the ability of rebirth of a phoenix. It can revive after being killed. Do I also have? Hearing the champion that he chose was also so powerful, Lynx Uzi asked with some excitement, can I also bring teleport and revive? Of course, Li Wu said. Ha 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 ha. Good. Then, we want teleport and revive as well. The other elders said immediately. This can be done, Li Wu said after a moment of consideration. Very good. Lynx Uzi said, we made the right decision by sending you here to gather information. You prove to be a person with great potential. They imagined the scene in which the enemies took great efforts to kill them in battle, but they stood up again. Even if they were killed again, the 5 of them would revive together and teleport back to the battleground. Just thinking of such a battle method gave them great excitement. 3, 2, 1. The game began. Feeding double kill, at this moment, the game already started. The projected images of the 10 champions from both sides had been teleported to the spawn points. Although they hadn't been through the tutorial, with Li Wu's reminders and explanations, they could handle the basic operations. Under the summon, the Xiao Ancestral Master controlled the projected image of the Deathsinger. Instantly, he felt like a pair of cold and horrifying eyes were staring at him from behind this projected image. The being that this pair of eyes belonged to seemed to have the ability to control people's life and death. Almost instantly, the fine hair on Xiao Ancestral Master's body stood on end. This was the first time that he sensed danger since he woke up. Even though they were separated by endless space and time, and he knew that they were in different worlds, Xiao Ancestral Master still felt alarmed. We must control the projected images of such existences to battle. With slightly squinted eyes, he was even more convinced despite his little knowledge of this strange mystical realm. This is it. Anyone who can build such a grand mystical realm must be related to that godly item in some way. As mentioned before, since the champions were summoned to this rift in the form of projected images, the items that the players bought were in a form similar to projected images to fit with the champions. Therefore, even if they bought many weapons such as an Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, or Last Whisper, the champions could carry them all. At this moment, every player had bought enough health potions and mana potions. Then, Li Wu said, we won't use the offensive strategy of advancing in 3 lanes as taught in the tutorial. According to my experience in many matches, I think we can have a better starting position. Really? Lynx Uzi looked at him meaningfully. Yes. Li Wu said, the 5 of us are like 5 chopsticks. If we fight separately, each of us will be broken easily. But if we advance on 1 lane and fight together, we can also teleport and revive. The tutorial teaches such a mistaken method. Lynx Uzi said, then, we don't have to follow it. Li Wu's right. If the 5 of us stick together, we won't be broken easily. We'll work together and take the giant nexus in the center of their base. The Xiaoao ancestral master said, since you've got a plan, let's do it accordingly. Soon, the 5 of them appeared in the mid lane as if they owned it. They were the Rogue Mage, the Cryo Phoenix, the Deathsinger, the Magus Ascendant, and the Chrono Keeper Mage type champions. At this moment, in the new shop at Kanglan City, a dog-headed man controlled the Curator of the Sands and sent it to the outer turret in the mid lane with a vocal command. On the magic letter for the live stream, the audience complained, embarrassing. Are you going to stream Dark Sword or not? You suck in League of Legends too. How many matches have you lost now? They saw Mr. Doghead, who hadn't activated virtual reality mode, cheerfully taking a bite from the fried chicken bites, the most popular takeout food from Wind and Moon Pavilion in Zhuhua City, and sipping the happy nectar. Suddenly, he saw something on his screen. 5 fierce men aggressively walked toward the Curator of the Sands under the turret. Startled, he almost dropped his fried chicken bites. What's happening? So many people. He immediately returned to the game, and the viewers saw the dog-headed man in the game hugging the turret while trembling. Ha 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 ha. Ling's Uzi laughed and said, do you see that? Before he could finish, he saw the dog-headed man testing the water at the edge and casting spirit fire at them. It was unbearable. Outrageous. It's outrageous. Ling's Uzi controlled the Cryo Phoenix to move. With a clear chirp, an ice ball full of magic energy that could freeze the air around it crashed toward the Curator of the Sands like a ghost. Meanwhile, the Xiaoao ancestral master controlled the Deathsinger to cast Q, lay waste, which exploded at his opponent's feet. The other champions also used their spells. Instantly, blue and red magic lights flew in arcs and exploded. Under their attacks, the dog-headed man jumped frantically under the turret. Obviously, he had been hit many times. Soon, his HP decreased quickly. At this moment, the minions had killed the enemy minions and charged forward. The Xiaoao ancestral master had glints in his eyes. Since we outnumber our enemy, why don't we take his head under the turret? Good. Ling's Uzi agreed cheerfully. We'll show him the temperament of masters. He will know what price he must pay for acting recklessly before the 5 of us. Then, I'll lead the way. Li Wu yelled and controlled the rogue mage to charge up. Everyone else followed closely. People who were watching saw 5 fierce men chasing after the dog-headed man to the turret. Arcanopulse. Flash Frost. Lay waste. The dog-headed man raced frantically under the turret while brandishing his staff wildly, tossing out the skill with his eyes closed. Rua. Rua. Spirit Fire. First Blood. Double kill. The Xiaoao ancestral master glanced at his stats. Sure enough, he could still cast spells even though he was dead. Stay calm. He is dying. Then, he cast lay waste one after another. Ah! Ah! Wither! With tears on his face, the dog-headed man brandished his staff and gulped down health potions. Triple kill. Ah! Heal. Quadra kill, penta kill. Who? The dog-headed man lay on the ground and panted heavily. He wasn't killed yet but was dying of fatigue. If he was in the original game, he would probably only have a few HP left. At this moment, he saw a scene as horrifying and scary as a nightmare. Light beams fell from the space above the minions charging in the front. Those dead figures were teleported here again. 5 figures stood before the dog-headed man magnificently. Ha 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 ha. Ling's Uzi laughed and said, surprise. Ah! The dog-headed man was scared witless. How come there are still so many people? Are these people cheating? With a wild roar, he raced toward the inner turret. Go get him! Don't run! My goodness! My goodness! Spirit Fire! Ah! The dog-headed man fell to the ground. Meanwhile, double kill. Triple kill. Ha ha ha. Ling's Uzi and the Xiaoao ancestral master were the only 2 remaining standing on the battleground. I think that dog-headed man is scared witless. Yet he could never guess that it's useless to kill us. We can revive on the spot. Victorious, Lynx Uzi exited from the virtual reality mode and sipped his newly purchased happy nectar, red tea, before entering the game again. Now, we'll fight all the way to their base. I'll see who dares to block us. Right. Die, revive, die again and revive again to be teleported back. Xiao Ao Ancestral Master laughed and said, I think no one has ever seen such a horrifying tactic. On the other side, the dog-headed man suddenly widened his eyes in horror. Damn! How come I got so much gold? Is this a godlike figure? While he increased the level of his abilities, he browsed the items in the shop with widened eyes, feeling a little dizzy. Frozen Heart. Increases armor? I need to increase my defense, maybe I'll buy this. Spirit Visage, increases magic resist. I think magic resist is better, the dog-headed man thought for a moment and remembered that his opponents had kept attacking him with magic spells. But, is there anything that can both increase my defense and offense? With focused attention, he began to look for items in the shop. After a short while, the elders from the Xiao Ao cave abode had revived one by one and came out. Outside the turret in the mid-lane the 5 of them stood in one row with the Xiao Ao Ancestral Master in the middle controlling the Deathsinger. How come, it's still not here? They looked at the forest behind the turret. He must be afraid. The old deist controlling the Chrono Keeper sneered and said, seeing us revive again and again, how can he not be frightened? Then, should we, another old deist said, destroy this turret? It hit me hard and caused a mess. It deserves to be demolished, the old deist controlling the Chrono Keeper said with a laugh, after we demolish these turrets, they will be doomed. Let the minions charge forward first. After some discussion, they began to push the turret. But they found that their magic power could only afflict very little damage to these constructions. Since the turret couldn't dodge, the attacks were very casual. So, have you felt that? The Chrono Keeper said. Felt what? The rogue mage on the side asked in bafflement. The spells that these champions use. They are activated, controlled, and cast by us through the projected images. The Cryo Phoenix said in a loud voice, I can even feel how it is controlling the ice. Yes. The Chrono Keeper also said, I can even distinctly feel how he changes the speed of time with the spells. I can even sense how he uses his future spells and mana in the present. I can feel that even though the projected image has only a tiny part of his power, it can do many things unimaginable for average people. You mean, Xiao Ao Ancestral Master said, we can learn and mimic these Dharma spells. There is more than that, the elder said, I think, since we can feel the casting process in person, it's more effective than learning the pithy formulas from great masters. Lynx Uzi looked at the Cryo Phoenix on his screen. This creature appeared as permanent as ice and could manipulate extremely chilly ice and snow. Even if he didn't learn the spells that this creature controlled, he could obtain lots of inspirations in areas such as energy circulation, control of details, and understanding spells. Oh, the old deists exchanged a look and stomped their feet while exclaiming, shame! What a shame! We lost! We allowed the heavenly faction to learn this before us. The group of old men looked relaxed while they chatted and attacked the turret. At this moment, a dog-headed man in golden armor strode up heroically from the distance in the mid-lane. Hey! The old men instantly stared at him, the dog-headed man dares to return. He has little respect for us. Now, I've mastered 3 spells of this phoenix. Lynx Uzi said chillingly, don't worry. If he dares to come up, I'll give him a good lesson. It seems like this man has forgotten the lesson that we taught, another elder said with a sneer, we must give him another lesson. At this moment, the turret still had half of its HP left after being attacked for a long while. Giving up on attacking the turret, they walked toward the reckless dog-headed man with fierceness. Level 3 was enough for him to master all of the rogue mage's spells, other than his ultimate ability, old version. The elder controlling Rise, the rogue mage, had blue lightning and violent rune energy jumping in his palms, illuminating his tall blue-skinned body. He looked like a master mage who was controlling lightning and thunder. On the other side, the majestic and tall cryo-phoenix spread out its huge wings with the force of a winter storm, almost blocking all the exit routes of the dog-headed man. In fact, it was what it did. An ice wall rose from the ground, cutting off the dog-headed man's exit almost instantly. Rua! How come there's such a spell? The dog-headed man became frantic. On the other side, Rise shot out an energy sphere that looked like a cannonball, and it shot toward the head of the dog-headed man. You still dare to come? You still, before he could release the third spell, the dog-headed man seemed to have an accelerator with him and moved so fast that he left a blurry shadow behind him when he struck forward with his staff. Yay! Heya! He brandished the staff wildly. Spirit Fire, E. Wither, W. Siphoning Strike, Q. The turret also attacked. Hat. Pu. A scream sounded. Double kill. The Xiaoao ancestral master and other elders behind him immediately stopped. The elders from the Xiaoao cave abode opened their mouths in fear, their tongues almost sprung out. Hurry! Attack now! But this dog-headed man moved like a gust of wind and dodged most of the spells. Then, he smashed down the staff again. Ah! The elder who was playing as the Chrono Keeper was knocked down. What? At this moment, the remaining two players felt like the dog-headed man before them. It's not a dog-headed man, the remaining elder said in horror. He faked being weak and hid his strength. We got tricked, the elder yelled. Run! Quickly run! This man looked like a majestic god, the horrifying death god from a distant desert nation. How come he runs so fast? Obviously, the dog-headed man was much faster than these 5 people and quickly caught up with them. Triple kill. Quadra kill. The elder playing as the Chrono Keeper who had been knocked down slowly raised his head and got up from the ground. While looking at his companions who were already far away, he gasped in confusion. Hiss! Ohio! Run! Run! He! Was that a godlike figure? After returning to their spawn spot, they exchanged a look of deep horror. This is the godlike figure whom they talked about. His power is as high as a great mountain. It's unthinkable. It's unrivaled. People enter this mystical realm to become such horrifying existences. The elders exchanged a look and saw the firm determination in each other's eyes. Will also become such great existences. Who, in the Kanglan city shop, the dog-headed man wiped cold sweat off his forehead and ate a fried chicken bite with great enjoyment. He glanced at his match history for today: defeat, 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 victory. Chapter 790 The Turbulent Homeland, the godly battle at the peaks of 8 mountain pillars begins. What's the damn sitting 5 in a row in the internet cafe? We didn't have a single victory. Having been defeated all day long, the Xiaoao ancestral master slammed his hand on the desk and stood up. He glared at Li Wu in anger. We were wrong from the first match. When the 5 of us charged at the turret to kill the dog-headed man, where was your crowd control? Why didn't you stun him? Since he had skipped the tutorial for the new players, he didn't know what class of champions offered crowd control. But after one day of playing, he had obtained lots of knowledge. Li Wu's face turned red, and he took a moment to organize his words before saying, we have 5 people. I thought that if I went up alone, he wouldn't run. I could injure him with spells and lower his HP. When he sees you guys coming up and decides to run, I would cast Rune Prison to freeze him. In short, I wanted to lure him to us and then freeze him when he tried to run. Li Wu stomped his foot and lamented, but he didn't run at all. How could I know that this player is so tough? He dares to charge at 5 champions after seeing all 5 of us. Did he know how powerful we were when we joined hands? Li Wu commented, reckless. He's purely a reckless player. The Xiao ancestral master froze. You seem to have a point, then, he glared at the elder playing as the chrono keeper. Where were your time spells? They were supposed to slow him down, right? I cast the spells. I cast time warp on Li Wu to increase his speed, the elder said, otherwise, Li Wu's rise wouldn't be able to get there before us. If he couldn't get there before us, how could he carry out the plan? As a skill, time warp could both grant bonus movement speed to allies and slow down enemies. Xiao ancestral master thought for a moment and found that the latter had a point too. These two people's thoughts, although they were still new players, their heads were full of these textbook-like fancy plays. One couldn't really find fault with them. The Xiao ancestral master turned his furious eyes toward Ling Xiuzhi who controlled the Cryo Phoenix. As an Ascendance Realm master, how could your key spells miss the target? After all, when the flash frost of the Cryo Phoenix exploded, it could stun all the enemies in an area. But you missed the target? I don't know why my spells missed. Strange, how could the dog-headed man dodged my spells? Meanwhile, in the new shop at Kanglan City, my goodness. Dark Souls. Dark Sword is on live stream. On the dog-headed man's screen was a huge and horrifyingly distorted demon covered in chaotic flames. Its huge axe hacked down viciously like a shooting star engulfed in blazing flames. Almost at the same time, the character on the screen seemed to anticipate the move and shifted before his opponent made the move. He dodged this strike narrowly with millimeters to spare. He wiped off cold sweat and gasped, "Who?" It was a close one. By now, Mr. Fang's shop had obviously expanded to a quite large scale. There were all kinds of players in his shops. For example, while League of Legends attracted many new players, some were still suffering in Dark Souls. Some players played other games such as Dungeon Fighters Online and World of Warcraft, etc. So was the situation with the newly released TV series, The Turbulent Homeland. Even the elders and disciples from the Heavenly faction in the new shop on the East Continent would watch the new TV series whenever new episodes came out. My goodness, has the Turbulent Homeland released new episodes? The live stream of Turbulent Homeland on the big screen will be updated tonight too. In the past, the big screens only showed half of the episodes released each week. Only the paying customers could watch all the episodes. However, beginning from Turbulent Homeland, the TV series shown on the big screens had the same progress as the content behind the paywall. The only difference was that, viewers watching the big screens couldn't obtain the benefits that they could have by watching in the virtual reality mode. It was almost the same as watching from the TV before Fang Qi traveled through space and time. As mentioned before, the audience had seen Dongying region's 10,000 battleships setting off together to invade the central region in the previous glance. By now, the grand main force from the Dongying region had crossed the vast ocean. The central region was in a gloomy state before the Great Storm. As the war turned fiercer, it now came to the white-hot climax moment. At this moment, Elder Xiao Yunhe and Elder Dugu Xiao lounged in their chairs before the computers and drank immortal happy nectar with great enjoyment, and Elder Senior Sister Yu Yin, other disciples, and even the elves and knights in the Kanglan City shop were all doing the same. They all turned on today's new episodes of the Turbulent Homeland. In the scene before them were 8 huge mountain peaks emerging in the clouds. They looked as tall as the pillars supporting the sky and the human world. Like the most majestic and tallest mountain peaks in the world, they were amazing miracle-like grand peaks. They were the legendary 8 mountain pillars. In the ocean of surging clouds, the 8 mountains seemed to stand proudly beyond the sky. Taller than 3,000 meters and standing as high as the sky, the 8 mountain pillars could be seen in the depths of the ethereal clouds. A martial arts duel that would decide the fate of the central region and Dongying region will take place here. The number 1 master of the central region was going to duel with the unrivaled myth-like figure of the Dongying region. Would it be an unfulfilled heroic ambition or the end of the military god's unrivaled legend? Wow! Everyone stared at the screen with widened eyes. Can we watch this today? At the foot of the mountains were countless troops with flapping flags, but the greater number were top-level masters from the central region and Dongying region. At this moment, First Elder Hyrule of the Elf clan finally got some free time and arrived at the shop. He saw several familiar faces such as the Saint-level masters including Saint Willy and Saint Lydon. They were all watching something with concentration while wearing virtual reality headsets. What are you doing? First Elder Hyrule asked in bafflement. They used to play games here, right? I've been absent for a while, how come you're not playing games anymore? Oh! Move away! Saint Lydon said without turning his head. I'm watching the Wuxia TV series. Wuxia TV series? I only heard of Xiangxia, are the Wuxia TV series good? Then, he saw an elf rogue who looked like Queen Kelebel, and she was also watching the TV series intently while wearing a virtual reality headset. He recognized her in one glance. How come you're watching it too? To watch this Wuxia TV series, you didn't even return to the Elf Royal Palace. Elder Hyrule sneaked a glance from behind. The Turbulent Homeland. Episode 21 St. Should I watch it too? Immediately, he found a spot and sat down. Among the surging clouds, the grand mountains shot up into the sky. Suddenly, everyone saw a light appearing on the horizon. It looked like a distant shooting star falling from the ninth heaven in the universe. With it came a clear long roar similar to that of a dragon. The sound came before the person. The worldly affairs are like a chess match. The universe is mysterious and immeasurable, and even heroes could only laugh and accept their fate. The person who appeared was dressed in a purple robe. When he pulled down his white mask, a pair of furious eyebrows that were as sharp as blades appeared. The chiseled face looked grand and arrogant. His slightly squinted eyes had a trace of tranquil and sadness in them. The 8 mountains are the pillars, and the one who falls down from the mountains will lose. On the mountain top across from him, Yi Yishul looked solemn as he lifted one of his hands vertically. The sky and the land are my witnesses, I'll have no regrets regardless if I die or survive. Looking down from the top of the 30,000 meter tall cliff of the mountain, one could see a vast ocean of clouds. With their cultivation strength extremely close to the godly realm, they knew each other like their own palms. When their hands collided, one of the 8 mountains instantly sank for 300 meters. When they put more strength into their palm strikes, the mountain collapsed to the ground. The huge mountain that seemed to be supporting the sky cracked open in the middle. Then, it began to collapse continuously. Instantly, it felt like the sky was falling while the land was sinking. As the whole mountain collapsed, debris, trees, and dust fell like a waterfall. In the waterfall of rocks, the 2 opponents continued to fight, using skills at a horrifyingly rapid frequency. The chaotic scene of the collapsing mountain was dizzying to the viewers, but for the 2 rivals, not a speck of dust could touch their robes. While they fought, their fists and arms turned blurry, but they moved upward at a great speed against the falling debris. Seeing this level of control, even Zhuge Qingyun, a pinnacle stage Ascendance Realm Master, looked astonished. Meanwhile, in the new shop at Kanglan City, even the Saint-level Masters were dumbfounded. This looked to be a power beyond mortals' limit. It was hard for them to imagine that a battle between humans could reach such a high level. Meanwhile, Mr. Fang had watched this TV series before, so he wasn't as eager as the customers. In the Wind and Moon Pavilion, while wearing a pair of big sunglasses, Mr. Fang chose a quiet spot by the window. I'm starving after playing League of Legends for a whole day, sir. This is the unique fried chicken bites that our chef made by following your instruction. It's a rare delicacy when eating it with your iced red tea. After all, Mr. Fang was operating an internet cafe, not a food shop, so he only had breakfast in his shop and ate snacks as his lunch. However, it was evening now. What's going on? Is it because I played too many games lately? Mr. Fang shook his head, feeling like his eyelids were heavy and falling as if he was too fatigued to keep them open. It seemed like an invisible force was pulling at him. He seemed to have an extremely long dream. He hadn't seen such a scene for a long time. It was a battleground that belonged to him. Yes, a battleground. Although it was only a virtual battleground, a group of people refused to live a peaceful life like the others. While others turned their focus to classic literature, these people were focused on heroic deeds and hardy revenge of the people in Jianghu. When their peers wrote exams for their future, these people were thrilled by the stories about the sword duel at the top of Hua Mountain and the rivalry between martial arts masters. TL note, Jianghu is the community of martial artists and wuxia stories. The fairy tales for that generation of people heated their blood. It was why they were eager to battle on their own battlegrounds, regardless if the battleground was as they had expected or not. Looking around, Fang Qi found that he was in a tournament arena, and a huge crowd was watching. Countless people stood up and cheered, and the chants rose like huge waves of a tsunami, getting stronger and stronger. On the stage where everyone was looking at, familiar and strange faces passed him while the audience cheered for them. Countless people from all over the world intently stared at the screens before them as if they were witnessing a great victory, and they watched as these people lifted the championship trophy. When the flag of his country rose on the arena, for some reason, he had an indescribable thrill in his heart. At that moment, something in the depths of his heart was stirred. He was different from the people in this world. It was glory, and it was also a chapter of his own dream. However, they still had something in common. This wuxia TV series is awesome. In the Zhuhua City Shop, Half City Shop, Yuanyang City Shop, Kanglan City Shop, and the new shop in the East Continent, almost everyone was watching this duel with concentration. Perhaps these Ascendance Realm and Saint level masters almost had the same level of strength as these figures in the TV series, but they were deeply fascinated by the godly battle skills and concepts. When Yisha fell into a disadvantage, he was able to react on the spot and deciphered the Dongying military god's great techniques, including return to nothing which could break every martial art move in the world and return to root which could absorb every variation of every martial art in the world. The audience sighed in appreciation at his wisdom and determination during the battle and his meticulous control abilities. When they tensed up, their hearts were in their throats. When they were thrilled, they wanted to shout out loud. Perhaps the viewers were thrilled and envious since they were watching something that they lacked or had never considered before. The Ascendance Realm and Saint level masters in the new shops in Kanglan City and the East Continent were enthralled by the battle, and they were engrossed while watching it. It was a fascinating battle that they had never seen before. Are there any other TV series or movies of the same genre? In the Kanglan City shop, the elves who had just finished watching the newly released episodes almost jumped up in amazement. Their excitement was evident on their faces and in their words. When can we become such great masters? The masters and elders in the new shop at the East Continent felt unsatisfied and watched again. Then, a group of people ran to the counter and asked, "Do you have other wuxia TV series or movies?" "Yes. The duel is in the same genre," Li Lanruo explained. "Let's go and watch it." Perhaps they still didn't understand the word xia, brave and chivalrous people, but they seemed to understand the meaning of wu, martial arts. In this context, strength perhaps wasn't the most important factor. It could be strength but also skills and represented a spirit. It was a spirit to continuously break through boundaries and thresholds. Meanwhile Fang Qi felt like he was slowly waking up, and he found that he wasn't in the Wind and Moon Pavilion. For some reason, he felt like he was no longer in the world he had been in. He slowly looked up and saw that he was standing inside an extremely grand and spacious ancient immortal palace, and an ocean of surging clouds was outside the gate. He clearly remembered that he had been eating dinner in the Wind and Moon Pavilion. He shook his head with force and murmured, "Am I still in a dream? No need to look." Fang Qi looked around and saw many blurry figures standing around him in the immortal palace. Then, a clear and cold voice that seemed to come from the ninth heaven sounded from the high and radiant golden main chair in the palace. Instantly, Fang Qi had the feeling that this being was a true immortal and god. You can think that you are in a dream, but don't think that your body in the mortal world will be fine if you die here. You violated the taboos, mortal. Mr. Fang scratched his head and thought, how can I, the owner of some internet cafes, violate taboos? Just because I haven't opened an internet cafe in your place? Chapter 792 The Powerful Enemy in the Dream. Immortal General Fei Peng. According to the legends, each of the gods was an ultimate existence, and they had a level of energy and spiritual power unimaginable to humans. In the legends, they were immortal existences that lived in the eternal void that was unreachable for humans. Regardless if the legends were true, they were undoubtedly the most perfect life form that could overpower mortals in every aspect. Don't try my patience, mortal. A cold female voice came from the vast ninth heaven. The thick and rich spiritual essence in the palace turned into a horrifying gust as if driven by the fury of this existence. Fang Qi could only hear her voice but couldn't see her. It felt like she was sitting above the thick clouds of the ninth heaven and looking down at him from an absolute lofty angle. Seeing your unrivaled talent, I decided to give you a warning. Don't think that you can do whatever you want arrogantly since you are unrivaled in the mortal world. In our eyes, your most powerful tricks are just insignificant skills that we can use at any time. While she spoke, an immortal light shot down from the high sky. In the blinding radiant light, a figure solidified and appeared out of the blue. The dazzling light made people have a hard time opening their eyes. The horrifying force that was above the mortal world instantly swept across the whole palace. More horrifying was that the omnipresent pressure that seemed to rule over everything in the world made Fang Qi feel like he was at the bottom of a deep ocean, and the horrifying pressure was coming at him from all directions. For an instant, he had a feeling that he would be compressed to dust in the next moment. You mortals, listen up. I'm the Green Sky Immortal, the heavenly supervisor of the innumerable immortal sea. The sun and the moon rise and set, and the seasons changes. Everything in the world is in order, and no disturbances are allowed. Your behavior in the mortal world is a great violation of these rules. If you don't repent, you'll bring destruction to yourself. The voice was as chilly as ice and as grand as immortal lightning bolts above the ninth heaven, and it continued, you are so arrogant as to say that you'd open a shop where the immortals and gods live. How outrageous you are! I can't open a shop here. Mr. Fang looked baffled. Then, what do you usually do? Do you have any entertainment? Reckless. With an angry reprimand and a wave of her purple sleeve, a purple lightning bolt struck down. The lightning bolt wasn't thick. Instead, it was as thin as a hair. However, Fang Qi felt a sense of death from all directions when the purple lightning bolt crashed down. He even felt that if he blocked it with his own strength, and the attacker didn't intend to go easy on him, his body and soul would be destroyed by this strike. In the blink of an eye, Fang Qi instantly raised his arms over his head while ugly scales covered his arms. Boom! The lightning bolt struck Fang Qi's arms. Even his extremely tough demon body felt numbed, and he stumbled, almost dropping to the ground. Meanwhile, a string of red data flashed across Fang Qi's eyes. The synchronization ended. The consumption at this moment had caused the synchronization to end. So powerful! Facing the existence completely beyond the mortal world, Fang Qi sensed a giant threat in his life for the first time. In the radiant light, Fang Qi couldn't clearly see her face, but he could recognize a trace of indifference and coldness as if everything that happened was within reason. Unorthodox tricks. If it was your own strength, I would be more alert. But one strike from me returned you to your true form. It's ridiculous. Now, you know how overconfident you were when you said those words? Your tricks in dealing with mortals are child's play in my eyes. I have no interest in the small trickeries in your shop. Humans have mortal Dao and gods had godly Dao. Mortals invade each other's homes and wage wars non-stop, causing the sky to collapse and the land to crumble. Countless lives were ended. Therefore, the godly court issued the decree to ban martial arts, ordering that the mortals can only cultivate essence and destroying all the combat and killing-focused techniques. After that, the world have had peace for many years. I'll give you one last chance to give up all your shops and explain their background. Then, you can go with me and cultivate in the innumerable immortal sea for 3,000 years. I'll handle the rest for you. Otherwise, this incident will be reported to the godly court, and a godly punishment will be issued. Anyone related will not escape from the tribulation. Meanwhile, in the new shop at the East Continent. Ancestral Master. Ancestral Master, the elders from Xiaoao Cave abode and abode Master Ling Xuzi walked out from the shop with heartfelt envy. Can you tell us about your era? What was it like? In my era. Xiaoao Ancestral Master pointed at the river of stars in the sky and said with a chuckle, do you see the countless stars in the sky? There were as many masters in my era as the stars in the sky. It's said that before I truly understood Dao, some masters even ascended and became true immortals by cultivating on their own and opening the heavenly gate. He lamented reminiscently, that was a truly prosperous era. Then, with your cultivation strength, Ling Xuzi asked, you still didn't reach the realm where you can ascend at any time. I was not able to ascend. Without the immortal spirit essence to temper the body, I'm a fake immortal. To put it lightly, I'm still at the pinnacle stage of Ascendance realm. Xiaoao Ancestral Master sighed and said, I don't know when it began, but the space beyond the sky has been taken by giant waves of tribulation lightning bolts of void, making it difficult to ascend and become true immortals. The people who forced their way up were turned into ashes without exception. Otherwise, Xiaoao Ancestral Master thought grimly and said, a mere Dao seed wouldn't be so crazily pursued by the talented ultimate masters in that era. Then, those existences. Ling Xuzi felt uneasy and thought, since Ancestral Master had his way around the limitation of life and lived until now, then have those existences also found ways to. If it was true, even the thought of it scared him. They must have reincarnated. He looked toward a distant void. While he spoke, Xiaoao Ancestral Master's face, which was usually as calm as an ancient well, had complicated emotions on it. They pursued Dao all their lives and finally got to the door. However, they ended up dead with the destruction of their Dao. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Xiaoao Ancestral Master frowned slightly. After thousands of years, his mind finally turned serene. The immortal path had been blocked. However, such a Dao seed appeared. I wonder if it's just a coincidence or... In the Kanglan shop after watching the Wuxia TV series, the Knights of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion were thrilled and baffled at the same time. Don't people say that these skills are all unorthodox and evil? How come they are so powerful? What a nice ban on martial arts! At this moment, Fang Qi said with a sneer, it's no wonder that they are all so weak. Despite their great strength, they can only utilize a small part of it. They are indeed a large group of noob cultivators. Mr. Fang thought to himself while covering his forehead with his palm. I guess, Fang Qi said with a chuckle, all the people who did the same things as I've done were invited here for tea. They didn't deserve our attention. Mr. Fang shrugged and said, sorry. I only have little interests. If you take my only hobby, what's the meaning of life for me? In fact, in the ancient time in our world, we had similar bans. Fang Qi seemed to be stating a fact. They did it to protect their domination. Green Sky Immortal's face turned cold. Regardless of which god is behind you, your behavior is a blatant challenge to the order of the godly court. If you continue with your mistake, the whole world will be your enemy. Have you made your decision? A glassy flame jumped in her palm and then surrounded Fang Qi from all directions. There wasn't an exit for him. I know you as well as my palm. A normal god can't even block one attack from me. Ah, it seems like the negotiation failed. Mr. Fang stretched and said casually, I say, what? Green Sky Immortal's pupils slightly contracted while she stared at Fang Qi. It's not me who's mistaken, it's the world that's mistaken. Ugh! Green Sky Immortal's face instantly froze. What did you say? Summon! At this moment, Fang Qi took out a strange rock with his hand. It was the carrier rock rewarded to him by the system. It could summon a character that Fang Qi had a synchronization rate over 10% with. At this moment, the rock emitted an extremely radiant light. Immortal General Fei Peng. Peng. Her cold eyes turned grim, and Green Sky Immortal's face fell as her body vanished in the blink of an eye as if she had teleported. In the next moment, Fang Qi's expression changed abruptly. Having experienced countless battles in the cultivation room with all kinds of masters far more powerful than himself, he dashed to one side without thinking. In the next instant, the ground that he had stood on vanished as if some strange force had struck it. A trickle of cold sweat slid down Fang Qi's forehead. He had never felt such a huge pressure ever since he entered this world. Hee, stupid mortal! The clear and cold voice seemed to come down from ninth heaven while Green Sky Immortal was nowhere to be seen. In the huge immortal palace, the pale glassy flames suddenly burned more aggressively. Like furious dragons, the flames devoured everything around them. Instantly, a sword gust that could shatter everything slashed over and forced the flames to back off a bit. Do you think I'm a stupid mortal? A cold voice came from the sky. If the immortal general beside you is here by himself, I might be more cautious. But do you think that he has a chance to leave your side? You're 10,000 years too young to battle with me. Water vapor rose while the moisture in the air instantly evaporated. Fang Qi felt like the blood in his body began to boil with the rise of the temperature, and his skin was going to be scorched. In the next moment, Fei Peng slashed his sword at the ceiling of the great palace. The sharp sword energy opened a crack in the immortal palace which even the horrifying immortal flames couldn't penetrate. Carrying Fang Qi, he shot out like a shooting star. But in the next moment, fire dragons flew into the sky. Beneath them, two pale fire dragons roared and bit at them like two prehistoric man-eating fierce beasts. Also, Fang Qi even saw the immortal spiritual essence around them had caught on fire. Then, the spreading flames were sucked in by the two fire dragons, and they expanded so large that they turned into two huge 3,000-meter-long dragons that were as giant as rolling hills. With ear-grating wind whistles, a huge tail swung toward Fang Qi. A chilly light flashed, it was too fast to see. Almost in the blink of an eye, the huge tail was cut into two halves neatly by the sword. But with it came a horrifying, hurricane-like hot wind from the sky. Even though Fei Peng had cut the tail of a dragon into two halves, the horrifying heat made Fang Qi feel like his body was going to melt. He even felt like his mouth and nose would catch fire while he breathed. The cold voice sounded again. So weak. You're just a mortal. With your strength, you dare to issue a challenge to the gods? Do you think that you're in a dream and can do everything you want? If not for you, the immortal general beside you might be able to fight with me. But now, look at your pathetic state. Do you think you are qualified to fight me? Before Fang Qi could reply, the other fire dragon lifted its head and let out a soundless roar, and a streak of pale immortal flame shot toward Fang Qi with vicious force. All the clouds evaporated. In the vast sky, the two fire dragons with blazing glassy white flames chased after him tightly. What did you say? At this moment, Fang Qi said, I'm 10,000 years too young? Then, how old are you? Hey! The Green Sky Immortal froze, not knowing why Fang Qi suddenly brought it up. You're an old grandma who is countless years old but still acts like a young girl. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? People say Asia has 3 evil skills, which are Photoshop, plastic surgery, and makeup. Is yours the 4th evil skill? You're hiding because you're too ashamed to see people? Are you afraid that your evil skill will be broken in the battle? You're an old woman who is trying to act cute and all. Are you jealous of little girls who are young and cute? Although she didn't understand Mr. Fang's words, she was angered, being called an old woman. An indescribable fury instantly rose in her mind. You are seeking death. In the past, every mortal was respectful to her and didn't dare to speak in a loud voice for fear of offending her. No one dared to speak like this to her. Her essence condensed into a solid form and almost crushed Fang Qi into pieces. But in this instant, a sword energy tore through the void. Meanwhile, the existence who was staying beyond the endless space-time continuum suddenly grunted. Then, a crack appeared in this dream world, and Fei Peng flew out from the crack immediately while carrying Fang Qi. Very good, old woman. But a small distraction is enough, goodbye. In the Wind and Moon Pavilion, sir. Sir. A waiter patted Fang Qi in bafflement. Fang Qi slowly woke up from lying on the table. Mr. Fang, you fell asleep, the waiter asked worriedly, are you tired? We have a place for you to rest. You'll catch a cold if you sleep here. Oh, Fang Qi rubbed his eyes and said, I'm fine. You can go and do your work. Then, he touched the fried chicken bites on the table and found that it was still warm. Also, the iced tea beside the chicken was still cold. It was a long time in the dream but was only one instant in the mortal world. Who? Mr. Fang wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead and thought, the immortals in this world are indeed horrifying. With one immortal already this powerful, one group of them would be unthinkable. It would be deadly, even though he had summoned Fei Peng, it was a narrow escape. Meanwhile, he felt that the Green Sky Immortal's combat strength was completely beyond any opponents whom he had encountered before. His previous opponents' battle skills were still weak and in the stage of recovery, and their spiritual spells and sword techniques were average as well. That was why Fang Qi could defeat them with ease. But this Green Sky Immortal was totally different. Even though Fei Peng had to protect him and thus couldn't unleash his full force, the Green Sky Immortal saw through it in one glance and forced Fei Peng to stay around him, which meant that she had extremely sharp eyes and immense battle experience. The most important thing was that she showed no sign of being at a disadvantage when she battled with Fei Peng, at least in the few moves that they exchanged. System? The enemy seems too powerful for me? Should we surrender, and hand the internet cafe to them? And I'll go and cultivate with this old woman for 3,000 years. System upgrading. Then, he wiped the sweat off his forehead guiltily. It was fortunate that no one saw that embarrassing fight. Otherwise, the haters would have forced him out of the various groups. Hey! Say something! The system replied, System upgrading, FK. System upgrading, Mr. Fang looked frustrated. Not long after Mr. Fang opened his shops, many people had begun to study the things in the shop that they didn't have to fill the gaps. Even in the new shop, a group of dwarves and mages were studying the blacksmith and enchantment techniques in World of Warcraft, let alone the Wu Vidaist Alliance, which was the first group of people who embarked on this journey. With Mr. Fang as a shareholder, they had the most complete research infrastructure to study the scientific and magic artifacts in the gaming worlds. They even had distinct divisions of work among them. Some of them focused on the artifact-making techniques in the Legend of Sword and Fairy and Shu Mountain, some were learning disassembly, enchantment, puppet-making, and item-making with recipes, some focused on the study of rune words in Diablo, and some even ventured deep into high-tech areas. This might be the front line of research and development of this world. Not every research project could make money, so Mr. Fang had gradually turned from an average shareholder to a big investor of these projects. After all, the assets of the Wu Vidaist Alliance couldn't support the ever-growing huge group of cultivator researchers. In some areas, this group had surpassed the East Continent and the West Continent long ago. Right now, the Wu Vidaist Alliance had a complete production line of new communication jades, and they also produced special weapons for the classes such as mechanics and launchers. While looking at the objects that were as perfect as spiritual artifacts being produced, one would have the illusion that it was another world. Of course, most of the items were still in the research phase and hadn't been produced yet. For example, the Animus machine which could recover ancestors' memories in Assassin's Creed was still being studied. This research project was led by Jun Yanzi of the Wu Videist Alliance and his disciple Li Haoran. In Grand Theft Auto 5, which had a super high degree of freedom, one could even see cultivators who read books diligently like students preparing for postgraduate or doctorate entrance exams. In Dungeon Fighter Online, one could see cultivators tinkering with machines and a bunch of computer stereotypes which were the super-evolved communication jades. Obviously, they were still in the preparation stage. At this moment, Mr. Fang suddenly received a message. Li Haoran asked, "Sir, in my preparation for the upcoming exams, I find that some problems are hard to understand. Can you explain them to me?" Then, he sent another message. In the process of mutation, what is the result when an extra nucleotide is inserted in a DNA? Option A, Option B. Mr. Fang was dizzy. Mr. Fang replied, "Read a book 100 times, and its meaning will present itself to you. If not, go and memorize the periodic table of elements." Okay, damn it. Mr. Fang looked sulky as he thought, who had traveled through time and space? Me or you? At this moment, Fang Qi stood on the bank of Red Maple Lake outside the Kanglan City shop with an ordinary bronze sword in his hand. He lit up a cigarette from himself and murmured, "Life, one must have an aim." Perhaps that special dream alarmed him, or he owed it to that spellcaster. As for his wish, the dream had shown it to him. It contained all his memories and glories on the journey from being mocked and looked down upon to being admired by many people. It wasn't something that he could easily put behind him. Thinking of that, Fang Qi felt like he owed it to that despicable system. This time, the system found its conscience and issued a task that corresponds to the dream at the bottom of my heart. The number of players right now wasn't too big nor too small. It was just enough to hold a worldwide esports tournament. Who? A faint circle of smoke floated out of his mouth, seeming to echo his sentiment. While extinguishing the butt of the cigarette, his face cleared. After realizing the only dream that I have, I'll put the shops in the hands of my staff and tour the world, enjoying the great views of this world which is totally different from my old world. Suddenly, he remembered a meme he had heard before he traveled through space and time. In the end, you will still realize that games are more fun after quitting it and doing other things. Anyway, he brandished the sword on the bank of the lake as a silent protest to the idle system which even denied him access to the cultivation room while it was in the process of upgrading. At this moment, Mr. Fang suddenly saw a group of elves walking up on the bank of the lake. Sala blinked her eyes in a cute way and said, "Sir, what are you doing here?" "Hey! You're an elf, why are you acting so cute? Do you think that you're Xiao Yu? You learned nothing useful and picked up these useless tricks." Therefore, Mr. Fang looked at her in bafflement. "Sir, have you eaten today? We bought delicious fried chicken bites and iced red tea and are planning to have a picnic here. Would you like to join us?" Sia acted cute and nice. Ha! Mr. Fang's face turned confused. "Can't you let me practice sword techniques in peace? You must have a scheme under the sudden show of hospitality." Mr. Fang became cautious. "Tell me your scheme. What scheme are you talking about?" Sala said with a pout, "You're so kind as to give us discounts and even free games in the shop. Can't we show you our appreciation with some food? You're so nice." The elves looked sincere. "Yes. Of course, if you can teach us some skills in playing LOL, it would be better. TL note, we will be using LOL as the abbreviation for League of Legends. Here's your true intention." Mr. Fang had a funny expression on his face. "You were tortured by others in LOL, right?" "Humph." Standing beside them with arms crossed before her chest, Rowling said, "Swex, you always calls us noobs. It's infuriating." We must become sharp. Sala encouraged herself. We must learn the high-level skills that can make us sharp. Sir, do you have such skills? What positions do you usually play? Mr. Fang thought for a moment and asked. I take mid lane. I take jungle. Mr. Fang scratched his head. Then, I'll teach you square jungler and triangle mid laner today. The elves looked at Mr. Fang in puzzlement, and they thought, we are playing LOL, not learning middle school physics and high school geometry like the artifact masters in the Zhuhua City shop do. How come there are triangle and square? Are you serious? The elves looked at Mr. Fang in bafflement. Of course. Okay. We'll learn this triangle and square after eating. Then, they handed a box of delicacies to Mr. Fang. This is for you. Although they didn't know what Mr. Fang was going to teach them, they knew, as he said, everything he did was of top quality. Swexu said that we can believe whatever the shop owner says blindly. Sala thought for a while and convinced herself. It must be true. In the new shop at Kanglan City both the active and passive players stood around the shop owner. The shop owner is going to do a tutorial on League of Legends. As a Saint-level master, Kelebel didn't have time to come to the shop each day, which was why she often made confusing plays in the games despite her high combat force. Immediately, she brought a stool over and sat down. The other Saint-level masters also sat down in the lounge area. In the other shops such as the Zhuhua City shop and the Yuanyang City shop, large groups of people were sitting in the lounge area. They watched Mr. Fang's livestream while eating snacks. Casually, Su Tianji opened a bottle of Coke and asked, "What's the shop owner going to livestream today?" Nalan Hongyu said, "League of Legends, I guess." "Grandpa, you came to watch it too." Beside them, Xiao Yulv, with a heavy bandage around his neck over the bone ointment, was sitting on a couch with his neck in a stiff position and a plate of dried fruits in his hands. Next to him sat an old white-bearded man holding a dragon-headed walking cane made of 3,000-year-old agar wood. Dressed in an elder's robe, he was Xiao Yulv's grandfather, Tiangang Elder Xiao Chonglong, who had come out of seclusion cultivation. "You haven't recovered yet." Nalan Hongyu looked at Xiao Yulv and froze. "Don't we have holy light healing spells?" "What holy light healing spells?" Xiao Changlong's mustache bristled as he said with glaring eyes, "Our faction had top-quality bone ointment, we don't need spells outside our faction." With his palms that were as big as fans, he patted Xiao Yulv on the shoulder and said, "I assure you that this kid will be up and healthy in 1 month. It will be a speedy recovery." "Osh! He. Yet. This bone ointment is indeed good," Nalan Hongyu cupped his hands and said. "Sir," with a frustrated expression, Xiao Yulv secretly sent a text message to Mr. Fang. "Can you secretly arrange a priest who can use holy light healing spells to heal me? I'm doing a live stream. Talk to me later." Xiao Yulv looked as if he was going to cry. At this moment, in Mr. Fang's livestream room, let's first do the square jungle. We'll choose this Mantis, the Void Reaver. We'd better choose a champion with powerful fighting ability to do the square jungling. Since our teammates are still choosing champions, we can play a round of Fight the Landlord. Mr. Fang glanced at his teammates and saw that they were still choosing characters, so he decided to play a round of Fight the Landlord. Since we're confident with this champion, we save lots of time. TL note, in China, all the popular streamers like to play Fight the Landlord card game while waiting to play LOL. Meanwhile, the 6 major disciples of the Heavenly Faction led by Elder Senior Sister Yu Yin and Elder Senior Brother Zhuge Qinlong were all sitting sedately on the couches. Around them were a large group of core disciples. On both sides of them were the white-robed and black-robed elders who solemnly supervised them. Do you see that? The graceful manner of a supreme master? The calmness before danger. Learn it with all your heart. Watch how Senior Fang plays it. At the end of the year, the faction will allocate more resources to the disciples who learn the most and have the deepest understanding. Hiss. The disciples quickly watched with concentration as Mr. Fang played Fight the Landlord. Meanwhile, they thought to themselves, we will also quickly choose champions and then play Fight the Landlord. It will show off the grand presence of our heavenly faction, a famous grand faction. Then, they heard yells such as a pair of threes, a pair of sixes, a pair of kings, bomb from the screen. It begins. It begins. With Coke or potato chips in their hands, the viewers watched while eating snacks. Mr. Fang bought the hunter's machete with great familiarity and set out. Meanwhile, in the half-city shop, demonic woman Ning Bai was also sitting on a couch and watching Mr. Fang's live stream while eating potato chips. She glanced at the ID of the jungler who was playing against Mr. Fang, almighty demonic god. With the bag of potato chips in her hands, she looked around and saw a familiar figure busy playing in a corner. She glanced at the win rate, 7 win streak. Ah ha ha ha! I'm unrivaled. If you like my stream, please click follow. Obviously, it was still on the live stream. Anyway, Black Demon and other cultivators in Half City loved to watch its live stream. Then, it took a large gulp of Immortal's happy nectar with great enjoyment while it thought in pleasure, old Demon Fang. Even though I can't absorb spiritual essence, I'm living as happy as an immortal. The game has started. The other jungler is the Mantis. This champion is easy to fight, and I've crushed most of them. They can't even farm the jungle camps. While drinking immortal happy nectar that it bought with money that it had earned through its live stream, it felt like its body had become fatter than before. Mr. Fang switched out and glanced at his personal chats in QQ. Sir, your opponent is the smirk face emoji. Ugh. Mr. Fang glanced at the ID of the opposing jungler. This style, indeed looks like it. The viewers of the live stream saw this scene. Ha ha ha. Let's see how Mr. Fang catches the smirk face emoji. Go. Master Ball. Catching the smirk face emoji with square strategy. Mr. Fang was calm and steady. Mr. Fang's blue side had Fiora the Grand Duelist as the top laner, Zeroth the Magus Ascendant as the middle laner, and Zyra the Rise of Thorns and Caitlyn the Sheriff of Piltover as bot laners. The opposing mid laner was Varus, the jungler was the Blind Monk, and Vayne and Nami the Tide Caller were the bot laners. Now, I explain to you why this is called square jungling. Mr. Fang controlled Kha'Zix to circle around the Lizard Elder, red buff, sleeping in the forest while he explained, this method might have fewer confrontations, but there will still be some fights. But it focuses on a sense of strategy. It's a strategy that you must use your brain to do. You have to make good strategies and see the big picture from small details. Ugh! You just watch how I do it. League of Legends needs strategies and calculations. Sala watched in surprise. I thought it is just fighting to win and stealing kills to buy items. At this moment, the cultivators from the Xiaoao cave abode watched it too. Ugh! We fought together as 5 in the mid lane, how come they fight this way? At this moment, Mr. Fang had come to his blue buff. Meanwhile, in the half-city shop, the smirk face emoji played as Lee Sin and called its mid laner over to stealthily move toward Mr. Fang's blue buff together. In a group of elves, Sala asked curiously, then, we'll have a fixed route? What if someone ambushes us? Mr. Fang continued to explain, some of you might ask, Mr. Fang, you'll have a fixed jungling path, right? What if someone ambushes you? I can tell you that it's impossible. There is a saying, know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. Mr. Fang said, we must use this strategy in the game. For example, we know that the opposing jungler is a blind monk who has a high win rate, thus a good player. Mr. Fang lured the ancient golem to a remoter spot while still dealing with it. This champion, the blind monk, controlled by a good player can certainly kill monsters more easily than us. He kept an eye on the magic map as he said, so, he must have killed the white camp in the jungle by now and will invade us. Right now, he should be in this place. The ancient golem was easy for Mr. Fang to deal with, so he had the time to draw a circle on the map. At this moment, demonic woman Ning Bai glanced at the spot in one corner of the half-city shop. Sure enough, the black cloud was sneaking from the bush where Mr. Fang had circled toward the position of the blue buff while sending signals to the mid-laner wildly. Cheerfully, it found the location of the blue buff in the jungle. However, it saw nothing. Pu. Seeing this scene, Ning Bai almost spat out her coke. The scummy shop owner is cheating. Sala and the other viewers saw the blind monk sneaking out from the jungle right after Mr. Fang defeated the blue buff. The blind monk wandered in the location of the blue buff like a headless fly. Where's the blue buff? In another live stream room, the blind monk with the ID Almighty Demonic God was circling in the jungle frantically. It's a big one. Is there a bug in the game? F***ck. Sala and the other elves were stupefied by the scene, and so were the other viewers. How could he predict this? This is called strategy. Mr. Fang continued to explain, of course, this is the most basic. As a jungler, you must know it. The newbies sitting in the lounge area in the new shop at the East Continent stared at the screen dumbfoundedly. Such an awesome strategy is the most basic one, ho ha 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 ha. The heavenly faction's black-robed elder Dugu Xiao, who was supervising the disciples as they learned, laughed and said, "This is the difference between a supreme jungler and you guys. Do you see the difference?" The disciples' eyes almost popped out. Supreme Master Fang's jungling is way better than ours. It must be noted that different from the original game, the monsters such as the red buff and the blue buffs had energy fields around them despite their slow movements. Therefore, when the players fought the monsters, they would receive some damage even if they dodged all the attacks. The smaller jungle monsters also had different settings to achieve the same result. Clearly, it was designed to make players in the game have a more equal footing since no players could use skills to kill monsters without taking damage. After all, the competitive games focused on the competition between players instead of with the jungle monsters. This way, the players wouldn't spend all their time on farming monsters and getting gold due to the easiness of killing jungle monsters, being very passive. Meanwhile, the players also wouldn't forsake fights with other players to challenge the jungle monsters which might be too difficult for them to defeat with their own skills. Therefore, at this moment, Mr. Fang's HP wasn't high. After killing the monster in the top half of the jungle, Mr. Fang went to the location of the last camp in the bottom half of the jungle. Meanwhile, the blind monk didn't find the enemy jungler after invading the jungle. With no monsters to farm, he chose to gank the top lane. At this moment, we can just ignore him. We'll just ping the teammates and tell them that the blind monk is close to the top lane. That's enough for now, Mr. Fang said, then, we'll continue killing monsters including the last camp on the opposite side. We know that the blind monk is in the top lane, which means that we're safe in his jungle areas even though our HP is low. Then, we will go home and buy a Tiamat. The game will be over. Ha! Sala and the other elves froze for a moment and then ran to Mr. Fang's computer. Sir, the game just started, right? How come it's over? Because now, we can draw the square. Draw the square. Sala said in surprise, Sir, didn't you say that you are going to take all the jungle camps on both your side and your enemy's side? How can it be? The mantis can't defeat the blind monk in the early game, right? Don't try to fool me. I'm not fooling you. Mr. Fang set off and killed a wave of monsters before crossing the river and walking into the jungle. At this moment, the blind monk walked past the small path in the jungle before him carelessly. The viewers were surprised. Hey! At this moment, demonic woman Ning Bai was standing behind the smirk face emoji player and staring at its screen with widened eyes. Ha! The elves and the players in Half City Shop and Zhuhua City Shop entered the smirk face emoji's live stream room and watched this blind monk closely. Yet! Hush, Mr. Fang whispered, "Look what I found. A smirk face emoji that is all alone. Now, let's try to capture it. But this smirk face emoji isn't easy to handle, so we must get close from behind stealthily and silently." In the almighty demonic god's live stream room, the smirk face emoji was also staring at its live stream room. Hey! How come I feel like my viewers increased? They are all here to watch me play Lee Sin? Everyone knows that the mantis can't defeat the blind monk, so, the moment it said that, it turned around abruptly and saw a mantis lunging at it from behind. First blood! The announcement instantly sounded. Ah! A shrill scream sounded as if a pig was being butchered. In the live stream room, the startled black cloud that was wearing the virtual reality headset fell under the desk and almost threw out its headset. A black head stuck out from under the desk and said, "What the heck was that? That? This is called a mantis capturing a ball, instant kill on landing. Ha ha ha. I was watching the live stream of the other jungler. It was so startled that it threw away its virtual reality headset. Hilarious. Hey? The other jungler is also live streaming? I'll check it out." Bullet comments flooded the screen. At this moment, Mr. Fang asked in his jungling tutorial live stream, "Can anyone tell me why I instantly killed Lee Sin on landing?" The person with the correct answer will get a bag of potato chips from the shop. Potato chips. Sitting among the heavenly faction disciples as an exchange disciple, Zhang Xiaoyu froze and then sent a bullet comment with her quick answer, "Me. Me. Me. I know the answer. This must be Mr. Fang's new skill with the mantis." Wrong answer. "Xiaoyu, please sit down." "How come it's wrong?" Zhang Xiaoyu returned to her seat in a huff, sulky that she lost her chance with the prize of free potato chips. At this moment, the observant viewers saw some clues. Did you notice? Mr. Fang's mantis has reached level 5 while the enemy blind monk is only level 3. My goodness! I didn't notice until you mentioned it. Besides, the enemy blind monk only bought a long sword after going back to base, but Mr. Fang has a Tiamat. How come the gap is so big? In the Zhuhua City shop, Song Qingfeng watched the game on a couch and asked in surprise. Do you remember how the blind monk invaded the shop owner's jungle and then went to the top lane? Nalan Mingxiu analyzed. This invasion produced no result and cost him more than 10 seconds. The shop owner told the grand duelist to back off and guard the tower, so the blind monk wasted another 30 seconds at the top lane with no gain. During this time, Mr. Fang killed a camp of monsters in the enemy's jungle and another camp in his own jungle. After he bought Tiamat, he set out and killed one more camp of monsters, reaching level 5. Meanwhile, the enemy blind monk is still at level 3 without items. That's true, Song Qingfeng said in surprise. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu saw a lowly's avatar jumping up and down in QQ. Zhang Xiao asked, "Do you have the answer to Mr. Fang's question?" Obviously, this little girl was eager to get Mr. Fang's prize of potato chips. Nalan Mingxiu replied, "Xiaoyu, call me Big Sister smirking face. Oh. Big Sister Shuai is smart, witty, and beautiful. You are the best." Zhang Xiaoyu said with exaggerated admiration on her face. Ha 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 ha, in the lounge area in the Zhuhua City shop, someone laughed convulsively. Noob Xiaoyu, actually using this one on me. Here's the correct answer. Oh. So, this is the right answer. Zhang Xiaoyu had little stars in her eyes. Mr. Fang announced the answer. Congratulations to Xiaoyu for the right answer. Now, you can go to the counter and get a bag of potato chips. Now, I will explain the combo to instantly kill someone on landing that can be used in a fight. At this moment, Mr. Fang had finished farming all the monsters in his top half of the jungle and reached level 6. Then, he began to invade the enemy jungle. Did you discover? The enemy's top and bottom jungles as well as our bottom and top jungles, our square is forming. When Fang Qi came to the enemy's top jungle, he saw that the enemy blind monk had just finished killing the white. When we attack, please remember that we're the Void Reaver who has a unique battle style. We only need to make use of it perfectly. Then, a streak of sharp spikes shot out with chilly lights. Almost at the same time, the wings flapped, and Kha'Zix shot out with the sharp spikes, defying the laws of physics. The mantis slashed out with Tiamat in the left hand while its right hand turned into an extremely sharp blade. Fang Qi launched 3 attacks separately, but they perfectly fell at the same time from 3 different directions. In this instant, the blind monk felt as if he was attacked by 3 people. In the half-city shop, Ning Bai watched as the smirk face emoji player screamed, "Wei-a-a! Flash! Flash!" This was so horrifying. Its scalp tingled in fear. When it snapped back to its senses, the blind monk was on the verge of death. This Tiamat and taste their fear, Q, can be used in mid-air at the same time, Mr. Fang explained, with swiftness, accuracy, the 3 attacks launching at one target in synchronization, it is impossible to block or escape. Instant kill at landing. As an assassin champion, Kha'Zix would either fail or succeed in one strike. So powerful, exclamations rose in the shops. Then, can we borrow the idea when we use mechanical hidden weapons? Tang Yu was inspired and started to think. As a young man in an era of battle skills recovery, he was obviously absorbing such combat experience continuously. He thought for a while and realized that despite the simple appearance of this strike, to achieve the best result, one must have perfect control in many things including timing and angle. After all, in the system version of the game, the players could do all kinds of fancy moves such as dodging and parrying. The system version of League of Legends that was played in the complete virtual reality mode had perfectly simulated the battle in the real world. If the 3 attacks all missed, then the assassin was virtually dead. This is the basic combo in square jungling. Many champions have their own corresponding high-level techniques. This is only the basics. In the new shop at the East Continent, the Heavenly Faction disciples who were learning earnestly stared at the screen and gasped. At this moment, refusing to admit defeat, the blind monk took some potions to recover his HP and then returned with his mid-laner, Varus, to surround Mr. Fang. My goodness, the shop owner is in danger, the mid-laner is level 6 as well. Controlling the Void Reaper, Mr. Fang stepped into the jungle again. Now, let's begin the tutorial Flying Mantis. Oh! F***CK. Apart from instant kill on landing, there's also Flying Mantis. Then, do the other champions also have super powerful high-level techniques? The viewers were excited while they watched. Meanwhile, in the distant innumerable immortal sea beyond the sky. The so-called innumerable immortal sea wasn't a real ocean but a vast ocean of clouds. Here, countless immortal birds soared in the ocean of clouds like fish, and the immortal isles floated on top of the clouds like a forest. Every miraculous sight and view could be seen here. This was the immortal realm. Standing opposite to the godly palace that was sitting in the ultimate west, this was said to be the place where immortals had lived for generations. Above this place was the godly court, the official ruler of immortals and gods and the loftiest palace in the universe. In the immortal isles, there was a place where rich immortal spiritual essence gathered. With abundant spiritual essence filling the space, even breathing felt different than that in the mortal world. A blue-clothed woman had a cold face, with eyes as chilly as ancient ice. Sitting across from her was a weird-looking deist in a white and black deist robe with 2 strands of hair dangling from his temples. Before her, a pot of immortal tea was boiling on the fire that was as glassy white as those in the battle with Fang Qi. When the water was boiling, white mist floated up like colorful clouds. It was a vivid immortal sight. There was a tiny crack on the teapot. It's a pity that this fine 10,000-year-old purple cloud pot is damaged, the old deist said in a chuckle. I thought that I could end the whole thing before the godly court gets involved, the cold-looking woman said. Now, the godly court must be making a move, right? We'll know it tomorrow at the morning meeting in godly court. I wonder whom they will send. They had endless lifespan to study anything in the world. For them, the small antics and tricks of mortals were lower than dust. It was because some of them could do much better than mortals with only one thought. No mortal dared to measure the strength of such existences regardless if the latter was strong or weak. For these existences, mortals were like particles of dust which they could send flying for 108,000 kilometers with one breath. At least, it was the case before these mortals could ascend and become true immortals. Perhaps only after the mortals had ascended could they see the tip of the entire iceberg regarding this world beyond the sky. As for the mortals, they were just as the green sky immortal said, they are just dust. In my years that I supervised the innumerable immortal sea, I've discovered few and received fewer who truly have the potential to ascend. Today, I saw one, but he didn't appreciate my help. Therefore, his case will be handled by the godly court. I plan to help this ignorant mortal and give him a great fortune. A trace of anger seemed to flash across her cold face. He was so arrogant. If I see him again, I'll show this mortal my true power. Maybe you were too aggressive, immortal. The old deist chuckled. Hey! Her almond-shaped eyes glared with vicious light. Do you mean that I have to plead to these mortals with a begging tone? The atmosphere calmed down a bit. Looking at the teacup before her, she seemed to be trying to see the other world through the mirror-like water in the cup. Regardless of which god is behind you, regardless of how many people are involved in it, they will be wiped out. For the reckless and ignorant ants, she signed indifferently, it will be a huge catastrophe. No one will be able to escape from it. But, the old deist said with a grim expression, is it necessary to deal with a group of mortals this way? Old deist, the green sky immortal said, have you forgotten why the martial arts ban was issued? It's a pity that they happened to stand on that path, the green sky immortal said, so, they were ground to dust together. The old deist fell silent with regret on his face. That kind of existence can easily destroy the world and create a new one like flipping over the palm. Green sky immortal's eyes looked mild as if she was telling an absolute truth. They are extremely stupid. When the time comes, even the god behind you is in danger, and what methods would a mortal like you have to battle with us with? Meanwhile, in Origin's internet club Mr. Fang had just got off the live stream. However, the bullet comments were still flooding the screen. The elves sitting on the couches couldn't stop giggling. Ha ha ha. It was so funny to watch the shop owner capture the smirk face emoji. Mischievous. Rowling mimicked the shop owner's play when he instantly killed his enemy on landing. I'll see how mischievous you can be. He 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 he. I felt like it almost turned into a real ball during the process. Sir, a group of people walked up and said, how come you stopped the live stream? Do some more, please. Yet. Sala held Mr. Fang's arm and wouldn't let him go. Didn't you say that there's a triangle mid-laner? I want to learn it too, I agree. Kel-Ebel stood out and said in a huff, you told us that you'd show triangle mid-laner. How come you stopped? Hey! Beside her, the elf clan's first elder Hyru widened his eyes. Are you the queen or not? You even want to watch triangle mid-laning? While holding a bag of potato chips, a bottle of iced red tea, and a box of spicy sticks which were obviously prizes granted by Mr. Fang, Zhang Xiaoyu posted a message in a group chat in QQ, Sir, why did you stop the live stream? Do some more, that's all for today. Tomorrow, I'll live stream how the Grand Duelist can attack 5 times in a second. Wow! Great! The elves who were the first to hear the news had glints of excitement in their eyes. The previous instant kill on landing was already a big challenge to players' overall control ability, and it was a powerful technique. They wondered, what advanced skill is this attack 5 times in a second? In the Zhuhua City shop, Nalan Mingxiu obviously had also received the news, and her lips curved as she walked out of the shop. Ms. Nalan, Lan Yan snickered beside her. You seem to be smiling more and more often recently. Do I? Perhaps. Maybe only at this moment could she show her sincere smiles. After all, only in this place can I forget the trivial business and schemes in the family. This rare moment of peace was a great enjoyment for her each day. Holding the newly published official novel of Dungeon Fighter Online, she sighed lightly. I wish we could live like this every day. What are you talking about, my lady? Lan Yan said with a chuckle, we have so many people with us. Besides, there is the Dumb Alliance army in Half City and the sedate-looking old Daoists in Yuanyang City. Also, we encounter dumb and cute newbies each day. With us visiting the shops each day, do you think that the shop owner has the heart to shut them down? You're right, Nalan Mingxiu sighed, before we notice it, several years have passed. How time flies! Yet, Lan Yan mumbled, I wonder why the shop owner hasn't organized any activities in the past 2 years. Before that, we had annual parties and all kinds of small prizes. Now, there's nothing, I don't know, Nalan Mingxiu said, after the business expanded, he must have been very busy. She showed her understanding. He has to live stream for us. Besides, seeing the high-level strength of the people in the West Continent, the shop owner must be working hard to increase his strength. You're right, oh. Lan Yan's eyes lit up as she said, we can organize an activity ourselves. We can prepare prizes ourselves even if we have to. This idea sounds good. Nalan Mingxiu and the Nalan family were shareholders of the Research Institute of the Wu-Vai Daoist Alliance, and she knew that there were some newly developed items, such as the weapons made according to the recipes from Dungeon Fighter Online, rune words made according to Diablo, and even some mimic items of previous prizes. Then, we can do a trailer too. Lan Yan suggested, oh, Ms. Nalan, have you saved the gaming pictures when we played Diablo, The Legend of Mir 2, and The Legend of Sword and Fairy? I'll have a look when I'm back. Let's name the video Commemorative Album of Youth. What do you think? At this moment, Fang Qi was standing in the red maple forest outside the Kanglan City shop with an ancient sword engraved with pine patterns. He had never looked so serious before. Perhaps, as time went by, his youthful clumsiness and recklessness had gradually faded while a mature and steady presence appeared in his eyes. The sunlight pierced the dense leaves of the forest and shined on the blade of the ancient-looking sword which reflected a beautiful sword aura. The blade lifted with an invisible essence attached on it, and the entire sword blade lit up with a soul-absorbing chilly light as if it had become alive. Level 8 wasn't a high cultivation strength. However, he didn't mind the low level of his cultivation strength. Right now, cultivation strength was the basic. But obviously, if he relied purely on his own cultivation strength to fight the battles that he faced, he wouldn't be able to do it even after cultivating for thousands of years. His blade slowly drew an elegant and strange arc as if he was mimicking the path of a sword technique with great care. One slash, another slash, again. He moved from slow to fast to even faster. Finally, when he struck out, he seemed to overlap with another person's shadow in that instant. It seemed like he had achieved complete synchronization in the moment when he used the sword technique. The sword blade cut through the huge boulder before him. In the next instant, the shadow that overlapped with Fang Qi suddenly vanished. At this moment, Fang Qi's expression changed abruptly. A streak of horrifying energy far more powerful than level 8 cultivation strength, which seemed to be the residual power of that sword technique, instantly sent him flying like a cannonball. Boom! Instantly, he smashed onto countless ancient trees and destroyed them before he could stop. Cough! 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 Fang Qi climbed out of the ruined trees and debris with a pale face. I still can't do it. He tried to instantly reach complete synchronization with a master far more powerful than him. In fact, sometimes it was even a godly master. After attacking, he would immediately remove complete synchronization so that he could extend the synchronization time. But obviously, an average mortal would look like a child brandishing a huge hammer far heavier than himself when he tried to control the godly level strength. It was difficult to lift the huge hammer as a child, let alone lifting it as if it weighed nothing. It was absolutely not an easy task. Meanwhile, in the innumerable immortal sea, according to the information that we have right now, this mortal has never engaged in a prolonged battle despite his godly level combat strength. As an immortal who had lived countless years, the Green Sky Immortal was far more insightful than mortals, and she analyzed, in each fight, he would wait for his opponents to make the move first, and then he would end the battle as fast as possible. Immortal, you mean, the old deist said, this person doesn't excel in prolonged battle. It's against nature for mortals to be in possession of godly strength, the Green Sky Immortal said, it's inevitable that he can't battle for long. When I tested him, that immortal general had the chance to obtain the upper hand but still chose to leave with him, it proved my point. Obviously, the god behind him is afraid of the godly court and doesn't want to show his or her face, which was why only a projected image was used and they avoided engaging in a prolonged battle. Indeed. It's not worth it to reveal one's true form just to obtain the upper hand, the old deist said with a sigh, but, if we were able to figure it out, I'm afraid that the godly court would have made the discovery long ago. With a frown, he lifted his teacup and sipped. He lost his only trump card, and there is no longer a need for concern, it's already a taboo that a mortal has control over godly power. A drop of sweat fell on the sword blade as Fang Qi continued to swing the sword. It was no longer enough to rely only on reflexes and control ability, he must make his body memorize this feeling through muscle memories. His body in the real world must memorize the feeling of making each move with perfection in the game and engraved it in his bones. Then, he returned to the shop. He continued to battle with Chonglu in the Legend of Sword and Fairy 3. But different from the previous battles, Fang Qi had nothing, no items or equipment, but a sword with him. He tried to perfect his skills. Meanwhile, Nalan Hongyu was playing as the Wuzhou bladesman in his live stream. This mantis has instant kill on landing and other techniques such as the flying mantis. The Grand Duelist has the so-called attacking 5 times in a second. I wonder if other champions have advanced techniques too. Different from the new players, the veteran players had been engaging in all kinds of high-level battles in the shop and had much more advanced skills compared to the new players. Meanwhile, some players who were semi-new and had extremely high talents were also studying and mastering these techniques. As a player with a high win rate, Nalan Hongyu would encounter opponents who had high win rates as well. There were no weak players on this level. At this moment, Nalan Hongyu's enemies had pushed to the inhibitor tower on his blue side. The enemy top laner was Zed, controlled by a saint-level master in the new shop at the Kanglan city. At this moment, both sides gathered inside and outside of the inhibitor towers. At this moment, a gloomy figure abruptly flew from the shadows on one side into the base. In the blink of an eye, it used Razor Shuriken and Shadow Slash together, stealthily appearing beside Nalan Hongyu's ADC. The Razor Shuriken and Shadow Slash slowed down and hit the target, and then the whole shadow solidified. In this moment, everyone reacted swiftly and cast control spells and attacks toward this Zed like a storm. The support stepped up and planned to use exhaust after getting in range. But at this moment, they heard a cold sneer from Zed. Death mark. The solidified figure instantly merged into the shadows and dodged all the attacks with great precision. In the next moment, he appeared again. The ADC flashed, but the Zed almost flashed at the same time. After the auto attacks triggered Zed's innate ability, Contempt for the Weak, he left intact as if he had changed positions with his shadows. The series of plays were finished in one breath. The viewers felt dizzy as they watched the Zed take the enemy's head with great ease among the enemy troop. When it was finished, some viewers still didn't understand what had happened. Without the ADC, the blue side was instantly at a big disadvantage. The other teammates were dragged into the disadvantage as well. They are going to lose. The viewers watching Nalan Hongyu's livestream held their breaths subconsciously. At this moment, they saw Nalan Hongyu's Wuzhou bladesman charging forward. The moment the attack arrived, his blade swiftly flew across the battleground like a light beam. Immediately, he landed beside a figure on the enemy side with great precision, and he slashed out with his sword while turning around. Then, everyone saw what happened. Alpha Strike, first hit. Alpha Strike, second hit. Alpha Strike, third hit. Alpha Strike, fourth hit. Quadra kill. My goodness! All the viewers stood up from their seats. Like sponges, they continued to absorb all kinds of knowledge. At this moment, something seemed to recover and wake up in their bodies. Mr. Fang commented, "At your great age, you still want to talk about youth," Su Tianji said, angry face. "I'm 17. Mr. Fang replied, smiling face with open mouth and cold sweat. "Awesome." Lan Yan changed the subject in a hurry. "Since the shop owner is here, we need some materials from the early years. Sir, do you have them?" "I should." Mr. Fang thought for a moment since quite a few years had passed. "Dig into your files and find them," Lan Yan said impatiently. "We have the new stuff but not the old material." "Okay. Here's the thing. In Zhuhua City, many people gathered in the lounge area of the shop. There were people like students such as Song Qingfeng and Su Zixin, the old customers of the shop such as An Hui and Su Tianji, and even the earliest customers such as Fatty Wang Tai and Liang Shi, who had gone their own ways due to different reasons in the real world but still were in touch with Mr. Fang. They were the first group of players in the shop. Ye Xiao of Cloud Ocean faction asked, "Swexu, have you fixed the date of our activity?" "Well, I've decided on the date." Nalan Mingxiu turned her eyes. "How about March 28th? March 28th? The others looked at her curiously. "Does this date have a special meaning?" After glancing around, Nalan Mingxiu waved at them and signaled them to lean toward her. Then, she said in a tiny voice as weak as the buzzing of a mosquito, "To celebrate the birthday, ah." "Whose birthday? Is it the shop owner's birthday?" Ye Xiao almost exclaimed, but someone covered her mouth. After a while, she said in a low voice, "How come I never heard the shop owner mention it?" Although Dajin didn't have the custom of celebrating a birthday for young people, this date was indeed a special day. After all, it was a party, and it would be better if it was held on a special day. "I don't think even the shop owner remembers his birthday," Su Zixin said in bafflement. "Swexu, how did you find out?" Nalan Mingxiu looked a bit embarrassed. "Don't ask." When she did the investigation on Fang Qi at the very beginning, she didn't imagine that she would use this information on this occasion. Of course, she probably didn't know that Mr. Fang probably had forgotten the exact date of his birthday already. Now that he was in this world alone, he had no one to ask about it. "That's settled then," Su Zixin said, "but we must promise not to leak the secret." "Oh! I have an idea." Ye Xiao suggested in excitement, "Let's make a big cake. Just like the ones in Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm sure that the shop owner has never eaten such a novel thing in the real world." "Ha ha ha! Good idea." They got happier with their plan as they continued the discussion. "I'm sure that the shop owner will be greatly surprised." While these people were laughing in the Zhuhua City shop, things were happening in the new shop at the East Continent. Mist and light drizzle engulfed the Dongxian cave abode. Disciples of the heavenly faction came out from the shop and opened their umbrellas without thinking. This raining weather had no effect on cultivators, and pedestrians were still walking on the streets paved with green stones. No one used the cultivation strength to block the rain for them. The whole city, at least for now, looked no different from the cities in the world where Fang Qi traveled from through space and time. As usual, the Xiaoao ancestral master led the cultivators of the Xiaoao cave abode to walk out of the Dongxian cave abode. At this moment, his steps suddenly paused. He stopped without a warning. "Ancestral Master." Lingxiu Zi looked at Xiaoao ancestral master in surprise. The thronging crowd before them seemed to feel nothing unusual. He followed the ancestral master's gaze and saw an invisible sword essence. It transformed into a vague white streak of rain and shot toward him through the mist and drizzle. The sword essence was nimble and ethereal as if it was a godly sword slash from outer space. It was absolutely not a sword strike from someone in the current time. Even Ling's Yuzi behind Xiao Ao ancestral master felt a sense of helplessness when he saw it. However, Xiao Ao ancestral master closed his two fingers and lightly pointed at the sword essence. Pop! With a strange explosive, raindrops splashed outward. Alarmed, the walking cultivators scrambled to dodge. At this moment, they saw a middle-aged man wearing a plain grey robe standing in the crowd with hands clasped behind his back. Tugu, Xiao Ao ancestral master squinted his eyes slightly. It's you. It's me. At this moment, urgent footsteps sounded from nearby streets while groups of cultivators from different factions walked toward Xiao Ao ancestral master from the streets before him and behind him with uniformed steps. Shoulder to shoulder, they came over with robes flapping in the wind. This is... Ling's Yuzi's face instantly turned dark since he knew all of them. The 3 factions, 4 sects, and 6 cave abodes on the continent of Immortal Village. Except for the heavenly faction, they were all here. What do you want? Ling's Yuzi said in a deep voice. Cough. Cough. At this moment, light coughs sounded from a nearby alley. A pale-faced man dressed in a black scholar's robe walked out. Nothing. We just happened to find the information we need coincidentally. Shang Zhuwen. Xiao Ao ancestral master's expression turned darker. Deist brother Xiao Ao, how have you been since we parted? Meanwhile, an immortal-looking young man wearing a silver immortal robe and a jade dragon headpiece floated down from the sky. When he landed, the people from different sections, even the Ascendance Realm Masters and Faction Master, retreated several steps as if they had seen a viper. Raindrops turned into a transparent pure white lotus flower under his feet, supporting him in the air. It was a miraculous and weird scene. Li Wuchen, Xiao Ao ancestral master's face turned chillier. Brother Xiao Ao is a bit selfish. At this moment, the silver-robed young man said, it has been a while since we understood the great Dao together. How come Deist Xiao Ao wants to take the Dao fruit alone? In my opinion, it would be better if Deist brother Xiao Ao shares it with us. What Dao fruit? Xiao Ao ancestral master looked baffled. Deist Xiao Ao, you mean that you don't know about the opportunity to make the further step? Li Wuchen's face turned cold. Existences like them had no regard for anything but this one. They would never miss this opportunity. You mean that? Xiao Ao ancestral master froze for a moment and waved his hand before saying, come with me. Hey! Everyone stared at Xiao Ao ancestral master. It's so simple. They exchanged a look and followed him. After coming before a great palace with the sign of origins, Xiao Ao ancestral master pushed open the gate and entered. He said to the counter, add 2 more hours to my account today. After all, he could borrow playtime from tomorrow. Then, he sat down before a computer. What are you doing? A group of people watched from behind. Didn't you know? Xiao Ao ancestral master asked. Know what? It's a new era now. Xiao Ao ancestral master pointed at League of Legends on the screen and said, the rules have changed. The rules have changed. We are fighting for the qualification to ascend, this rule had changed. Who could make new rules? Xiao Ao ancestral master opened the rank system that he had just activated. On it was written, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, master, and challenger. TL note, in Chinese LOL, the ranks had adjectives before them. The direct translations are brave bronze, unyielding silver, glorious gold, luxurious platinum, radiant diamond, supreme master, and unrivaled challenger. Then, he pointed at the announcement on the blackboard that the shop owner had just put on. Do you want to become a real godlike figure? The enrollment for League of Legends World Championship Series qualifier begins today. Participants need to at least reach Diamond and form a team of at least 5 people. Become a godlike figure? Can we really become gods this way? This group of people stared at the small blackboard intently. Diamond. Challenger.